If you're enjoying this video, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell. Share it with your friends and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Every like and subscribe helps the channel grow. My name is William Harrison, and I wish I could forget the summer of 1954. But some things stick to your mind like tree sap, and this story is one of them. I was 45 then, working as a park ranger in the Bladen Lake State Forest in North Carolina. Every morning, I'd wake up in my small cabin by the lake, make my coffee, and check on the forest. It was supposed to be peaceful work, but Peace and I hadn't been friends for a long time. That morning started like any other. The fog was thick over the cypress swamps, making everything look like a ghost story. I sat on my wooden dock with my metal coffee cup, watching the sun come up through the trees. A big blue heron was hunting in the shallow water, moving so slow and careful that I almost envied him. He knew what he was doing. I wasn't so sure about myself anymore. The Spanish moss hung down from the old oak trees like gray hair. Gnats buzzed around my head, and somewhere in the distance, cicadas were making their endless summer noise. The nearest town was 15 miles, away down a dirt road that got muddy when it rained. Most days, I liked being alone out here. It was quiet, and quiet was good for a man like me. See, I'd been a medic in World War II. Over there in France and Germany, I'd seen things that no person should see. Boys younger than my nephew getting shot up, screaming for their mothers while I tried to patch them up with whatever I could find. Sometimes tape and hope were all I had. Too many times, hope wasn't enough. My hands used to be steady as a rock. Had to be, when you're trying to save someone's life with bullets flying overhead. But these days, they shook when I thought too hard about the past. My wife used to say I talked in my sleep, calling out names of soldiers who didn't make it home. She'd wake me up when the nightmares got bad, but my wife was gone now. Cancer took her while I was busy drinking bourbon and trying to forget the war. I have a Bronze Star medal in my tackle box, but it doesn't feel like mine anymore. How can you be a hero when you couldn't save the people who mattered most? I was thinking about these dark things when I heard footsteps on the gravel path. A young woman was walking toward my dock. Her name was Jenny Patterson, and she was the daughter of a farmer who lived about 5 miles east of the forest. I'd seen her around town a few times. She was 22, with brown hair and worried eyes. "Mr. Harrison," she called out, "I'm sorry to bother you so early, but something's wrong with our animals." I set down my coffee cup and stood up. "What kind of wrong?" She twisted her hands together. "Our cats are all scared. They won't come out from under the porch, and they hiss at shadows. And some of our neighbors' livestock, they're missing." "Missing how?" "Just gone. Cows, goats, even Mrs. Henderson's big old tomcat. Nobody heard a thing. No tracks, no signs of struggle. They're just not there anymore. I'd been a park ranger for 8 years. I knew every trail, every swimming hole, every place where kids like to camp without permission. In all that time, I'd never heard anything like this." "When did this start?" I asked. "About a week ago, but it's getting worse. Last night, something killed our dog Rex. We found him this morning near the barn, but..." She stopped and took a shaky breath. "There wasn't any blood, Mr. Harrison, not a drop. It was like something just sucked it all out of him. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I'd seen death plenty of times, but what Jenny was describing didn't sound natural. "I'll come take a look," I said. "Give me a minute to get my things." I went back to my cabin and got my ranger jacket and my toolbox. I also grabbed the pistol I kept in my desk drawer. In the war, I'd learned that sometimes being prepared for the worst was the only thing that kept you alive. When I came back, Jenny was still standing by the dock, looking nervous. The morning fog was starting to lift, but the air still felt heavy and strange. My old war wounds were aching, which usually meant the weather was about to change. "Mr. Harrison," Jenny said as we walked toward her family's farm, "do you believe in things that can't be explained?" I thought about the nightmares that visited me every night. about the voices of dead soldiers I sometimes heard in the wind. I've seen enough in my life to know that the world is stranger than most people want to believe. We walked through the forest in silence after that. The trees seemed quieter than usual. Even the birds weren't singing much. Something about the space between their calls made me nervous, like when you're waiting for the next bomb to drop, and you know it's coming but you don't know when. I'd been looking for a reason to have meaning in my life again. Maybe this was it. Maybe helping Jenny and her family would give me something useful to do with these shaky hands and this guilty heart. But as we got closer to the Patterson farm, I started to think that what we were walking toward wasn't going to be simple. And I was right. Nothing about what happened that summer was simple. Sometimes I think if I'd just stayed on my dock that morning, drinking my coffee and watching the heronfish, everything would have been different. But then again, maybe some things are meant to happen, whether you want them to or not. The beast of Bladenborough was waiting for us. I just didn't know it yet. The Patterson farm was about a 20-minute walk through the woods. As we got closer, I noticed things that made me uncomfortable. The birds had stopped singing completely. Even the insects seemed quieter than usual. In all my years in these woods, I'd never heard them this silent. "There's our barn," Jenny said, pointing ahead. The red barn looked normal enough, but something felt wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. Then I saw what Jenny wanted to show me. "Look at this," she said, running her hand along the barn wall. Deep scratch marks ran down the wooden boards. They were longer than my hand and cut straight through the paint into the wood underneath. I'd seen bear claws before, and bobcat scratches too. These were different, much bigger. "How high up do they go?" I asked. Jenny looked up. "About 8 feet, maybe 9. I whistled low. That was higher than any cat I knew could reach, even if it jumped. We walked around the barn, and I found more scratch marks on the other side. These were even deeper. Whatever made them had to be strong enough to cut through 2 inches of solid wood. "Where did you find your dog?" I asked. Jenny's face went pale. "Over here." She led me to a spot near the barn door. The ground was torn up like there had been a fight, but I didn't see any blood, not even a drop. That bothered me more than I wanted to admit. "Rex was a big dog," Jenny said. "German Shepherd mix. He wasn't afraid of anything, but when we found him..." She stopped and wrapped her arms around herself. "What did he look like?" "Like he was sleeping, peaceful. But his eyes were wide open and they looked scared. And he was so pale, Mr. Harrison, like all the blood had been drained right out of him." I knelt down and studied the torn earth. There were paw prints in the soft dirt, but they didn't look right. They were huge, bigger than any dog or wildcat I'd ever seen, and the spacing between them suggested whatever left them could jump much farther than any normal animal. "Jenny, has anyone else seen these marks?" "My dad looked at them yesterday. He said it must be a bear, but I've never heard of a bear doing anything like this." I stood up and brushed the dirt off my knees. A bear wouldn't drain the blood from its prey. Bears were messy eaters. They left pieces behind. This was something else entirely. "Let's check your neighbors' places," I said. We walked to the Henderson farm next door. Mrs. Henderson was hanging laundry on her line when we arrived. She was a small, elderly woman who'd lived in these parts her whole life. "Morning, Mrs. Henderson," I called out. She looked over and waved. "Well, if it isn't Ranger Harrison. Jenny told you about our troubles?" "Yes, ma'am. Mind if I take a look around?" "Course not. Though I warn you, there ain't much to see. My Tom just vanished into thin air." Mrs. Henderson showed us where her cat usually slept, on the back porch. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, no fur. Just an empty cushion where a 20-pound tomcat used to spend his days. "Strangest thing," she said. "Tom was the toughest cat in the county. Fought off raccoons twice his size, but 3 nights ago I heard him yowling something terrible. By the time I got outside with my flashlight, he was gone." What kind of yowling? I asked, like he was scared out of his mind. Not angry cat sounds, but pure terror. Never heard anything like it. I looked around the yard. Like at the Patterson farm, everything was too quiet. Even the chickens in Mrs. Henderson's coop were huddled together, barely making a sound. Mrs. Henderson, have you noticed anything else strange? Any odd sounds at night? Animals acting different? The old woman thought for a moment. Well, now that you mention it, my chickens won't come out of their coop anymore. And the other night, I could have sworn I heard my mama calling my name from the woods. But Mama's been dead for 15 years. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the morning air. Jenny and I visited 3 more farms that afternoon. The story was the same everywhere. Missing animals, strange scratch marks, and bloodless bodies. At the Johnson place, we found a full-grown cow hanging 15 feet up in an oak tree. It had been completely drained of blood, but there wasn't a drop on the ground below. How does something get a cow up in a tree? Jenny asked, staring up at the impossible sight. I didn't have an answer. Nothing I'd learned in the war or in my years as a ranger could explain what we were seeing. The strangest thing happened when I tried to take pictures of the evidence. I had a good camera with fresh film, but every photo I took came out completely black. Even the pictures I took of normal things like trees and barns turned out dark. That's not right, I muttered, looking at the ruined film. What's wrong? Jenny asked. This film is brand new. The camera's working fine. But look at this. I showed her the developed pictures. Every single one was pitch black, like I'd taken photos in a dark room with no flash. Late in the afternoon, we were heading back through the woods when my compass started acting up. The needle spun around in circles, never settling on any direction. I tapped the glass, but it didn't help. Mr. Harrison, Jenny said in a quiet voice. Did you hear that? I stopped walking and listened. At first I didn't hear anything unusual. Then, very faintly, I heard a voice calling Jenny's name. Jenny, sweet child. Come here, Jenny. It was an old woman's voice coming from deep in the swamp. That's my grandmother's voice, Jenny whispered. But she died when I was 10. The voice called again, farther away now. Jenny took a step toward the sound. No, I said, grabbing her arm. We're going back to town. Now. As we hurried back toward the farms, I kept looking over my shoulder. I had the feeling we were being watched, but I never saw anything moving in the trees. Back at Jenny's farm, her father was waiting for us on the porch. He was a big man with calloused hands and worried eyes. Find anything? He asked. I thought about the cow in the tree, the photos that wouldn't develop, the voice calling from the swamp. I need to do some research, I said. Look into whether anything like this has happened before. That night, I sat in my cabin with a bottle of bourbon and tried to make sense of what I'd seen. Nothing about the day made logical sense. Animals don't just disappear without leaving tracks. Cows don't hang themselves in trees. Dead grandmothers don't call to their granddaughters from swamps. But I'd seen enough impossible things in my life to know that sometimes the world doesn't follow the rules we think it should. In the war, I'd seen men survive wounds that should have killed them, and I'd seen others die from injuries that looked like scratches. I was starting to think that whatever was killing the animals around Bladen Lakes wasn't natural. And if that was true, then Jenny and her neighbors were in real danger. Outside my window, the forest was darker and quieter than I'd ever seen it. Even the night sounds, the owls, the frogs, the rustling of small creatures, had stopped. Something was out there in the darkness. Something that could climb trees like a cat, drain blood like a vampire, and make the dead speak to the living. I took another drink and checked my pistol. Tomorrow, I would have to go back into those woods and find out what the beast of Bladenborough really was. But tonight, I just sat by my window and watched the shadows, hoping that whatever was out there would stay in the darkness where it belonged. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I hadn't slept at all. My dreams had been full of yellow eyes and voices calling from dark places. I made my coffee extra strong and sat on my dock, trying to figure out what to do next. Jenny showed up around 8 o'clock. She looked as tired as I felt. "Mr. Harrison, something happened last night," she said. "I think I saw it." I set down my coffee cup. "Saw what?" "The thing that's been killing our animals." I was getting a glass of water in the kitchen and I looked out the window. There were these eyes in the woods. Big yellow eyes watching our house. How big? She held her hands about a foot apart. Like car headlights. But they were up high, maybe 20 feet off the ground. And when I blinked, they were gone. I believed her. After what we'd seen yesterday, nothing seemed impossible anymore. "We need to go back into the woods," I said. "In daylight. I want to find where those eyes were watching from." Jenny nodded. "My dad's going into town today. He said we could use his truck if we needed it." We drove as far as the old logging road. Would take us, then walked the rest of the way. The forest felt different in the morning light. The shadows seemed deeper, and the spaces between the trees looked darker than they should have. "There," Jenny pointed. "That's where I saw the eyes." We walked to a large oak tree near the edge of the swamp. The tree was old and thick, with branches that reached out like arms. About 20 feet up, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Claw marks. Fresh ones cut deep into the bark. "Jenny, look at this." The scratches were huge, much bigger than what we'd found on the barn. They went all around the tree trunk, like something had been climbing up and down, sharpening its claws. "What kind of animal has claws that big?" Jenny asked. Before I could answer, I heard something that made us both freeze. A sound like a car engine rumbling, but deeper. It was coming from somewhere above us. I looked up and felt my heart stop. 20 feet above us, crouched on a thick branch, was the biggest cat I'd ever seen. But calling it a cat was like calling a tornado a strong wind. This thing was the size of a small car, with black fur so dark it seemed to swallow light. Its face was longer than a coffin, with fangs that hung down like white knives. And its eyes were exactly like Jenny had described, yellow and bright as headlights, staring right at us. "Don't move," I whispered to Jenny. The creature tilted its head, studying us. Then it did something that made my skin crawl. It smiled. Not the way a cat might show its teeth, but a real smile, like it was happy to see us. "Hello, William," it said. My legs almost gave out. The voice was familiar, but I couldn't place it at first. Then it hit me like a punch to the gut. It was the voice of Private Danny Morrison, a kid from Ohio who died in my arms during the Battle of the Bulge. "You remember me, don't you?" the beast said with Danny's voice. "You promised you'd get me home. You promised my mother you'd take care of me." "You're not Danny," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Danny's dead." The creature laughed. A sound like thunder rolling across the sky. "We're all dead, William. All the boys you couldn't save. But we're here now, waiting for you. I felt like I was back in that field hospital tent, covered in blood, watching young men die because I didn't have enough supplies, enough skill, enough time. The guilt I'd been carrying for 10 years crashed down on me like a wave. "Jenny," I said, without taking my eyes off the beast, "start backing away, slowly." But when I looked, Jenny wasn't moving. She was staring up at the creature with a strange, peaceful look on her face. "Sweet child," the beast said, and now its voice was different. Older, gentler. "Come to grandmother, I've been waiting for you." "Jenny, no." I grabbed her arm. She shook me off with surprising strength. "It's okay, Mr. Harrison. It's my grandmother. She wants to show me something." The beast purred, a sound so deep I felt it in my bones. The vibration made the leaves on the tree shake, and I heard windows rattling in houses miles away. Jenny started walking toward the tree, not hurrying, just walking like she was going to Sunday dinner. I pulled out my pistol, knowing it probably wouldn't do any good. "Stop right there!" The beast looked at me with those terrible yellow eyes. Guns won't help you here, William. This is about guilt. This is about all the people you failed to save. As I stared at it, the creature seemed to change. Sometimes it looked like a giant cat. Sometimes it looked like the shadows of all the soldiers who had died under my care. And sometimes, in the space between blinks, it looked like my wife, lying in that hospital bed, asking me why I wasn't there when she needed me most. "You couldn't save us," it said in a chorus of voices I recognized. Danny Morrison, Tommy Garcia. From Texas, my wife Sarah. "So now you get to watch someone else die because of your failures." Jenny was almost at the tree now. She reached up toward a low branch, and I saw that her fingernails had grown longer and sharper. When she smiled, her teeth looked different too. That's when I realized this thing didn't just kill animals and drink their blood. It corrupted people, changed them, made them into something else. "Jenny!" I shouted. "Fight it! That's not your..." "A grandmother." For just a second, Jenny blinked and looked confused. "Mr. Harrison, why are you pointing a gun at me?" The beast hissed, angry that its spell had been broken. It dropped from the tree, landing on the ground with a thud that shook the earth. Up close, it was even bigger than I'd thought. Its fur didn't reflect any light at all, making it hard to see exactly where the creature ended and the shadows began. "You want to save her?" it asked, circling us like we were prey. "Then come closer, William. Let me finish what should have been finished in France." The creature moved without making a sound, despite weighing as much as a car. Its breath made clouds in the air, even though it was 90 degrees outside. It smelled like old blood, and things left too long in dark places. I kept my gun pointed at it, but my hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from all those old memories crashing over me. Every face I couldn't save, every promise I couldn't keep. Jenny was fighting the creature's influence. I could see it. She'd take a step toward the beast, then stop and shake her head like she was trying to wake up from a dream. It feeds on guilt, I realized out loud. That's how it controls people. The beast laughed. "Very good, William. 10 years too late, but very good." It crouched down, getting ready to pounce. Its muscles bunched under that black fur, and I knew that in a few seconds it would launch itself at us, and this would all be over. That's when I noticed something. Hanging from my belt, my old Bronze Star medal was getting warm. Not hot, but warm enough to feel through my shirt. The beast noticed it too, its eyes fixed on the medal, and for the first time since we'd met, it looked worried. "Interesting," it purred. "You still carry your guilt around with you, such a dedicated failure," but I could hear uncertainty in its voice now, and Jenny had stopped walking toward it completely. Maybe there was a way out of this after all. Maybe the guilt I'd been carrying all these years wasn't just a burden. Maybe it was also something else. Maybe it was armor. The beast tensed, ready to spring. Jenny stood between us, still fighting against whatever power was trying to control her mind, and I made a decision that would change everything. I did something that surprised even me. Instead of running or shooting, I started talking to the beast. "You're right," I said. "I failed them. I failed Danny Morrison and Tommy Garcia and all the others. I couldn't save my wife when she was dying. I carry that guilt every single day." The beast stopped moving. Its yellow eyes narrowed like it was trying to figure out what I was doing. "But you know what?" I continued, taking a step forward. "That guilt made me better. It made me care more. It made me try harder to help people, even when I'm afraid I'll fail again." "Shut up!" the beast snarled, but its voice sounded less sure than before. I looked at Jenny, who was still standing between us, looking confused and scared. "Jenny, listen to my voice. That's not your grandmother. Your grandmother loved you. She wouldn't want you to get hurt." Jenny blinked hard, like she was trying to clear fog from her eyes. "Mr. Harrison, I feel so strange." The beast roared, a sound so loud that birds flew out of trees a mile away. It charged at me, moving faster than anything that big should be able to move. I dove to one side, and the creature's claws raked across my chest. tearing through my shirt and cutting into my skin. The pain was sharp and hot, but I'd felt worse in the war. "Jenny, run!" I shouted, but instead of running, Jenny did something incredible. She picked up a big stick and started banging it against a tree, making as much noise as she could. The beast stopped and covered its ears with its paws. The noise seemed to hurt it somehow. "It doesn't like loud sounds," Jenny yelled. I fumbled for my bronze star medal and pulled it off my belt. The metal was warm now, almost hot to touch. When I held it toward the beast, the creature stepped back and hissed. "Interesting," I said. "You don't like brass, do you?" The beast's fur stood on end. "That medal means nothing. You didn't earn it. You failed everyone." "Maybe," I said, "but I kept trying. Even after I failed, I kept trying to save people. That has to count for something." The creature lunged at me again. This time I was ready. I grabbed Jenny's stick and swung it hard at the beast's head. It connected with a solid thunk, and the creature stumbled back, but it recovered quickly. It knocked me down with one swipe of its paw and pinned me to the ground. Its weight was crushing, like having a car sitting on my chest. The beast's face came down close to mine. Its breath was hot and smelled like rotting meat. "Time to join all the others you failed to save," it whispered. Its fangs were inches from my neck. I could feel my pulse beating against my skin, and I knew the creature could sense it too. That's when Jenny saved my life. She ran up behind the beast and jammed my bronze star medal deep into its eye socket. The creature screamed, a sound like metal being torn apart. Black blood poured from the wound, and where it hit the ground, the grass died instantly. The beast thrashed and rolled off me, clawing at its injured eye. The smell of burning fur filled the air where the brass medal had touched it. "William!" it howled, but now its voice was just animal sounds, not human words anymore. "This isn't over!" Jenny helped me to my feet. The beast was rolling on the ground, black blood streaming down its face. The blood sizzled where it touched my skin, leaving red marks like burns. "Is it dying?" Jenny asked. As if to answer her question, the creature let out one final roar and went still. Its yellow eyes faded to grey, then black. The terrible presence I'd felt since we entered the woods lifted, like a weight being removed from my shoulders. For the first time in 10 years, the voices of the soldiers I couldn't save went quiet in my head. The guilt was still there, but it felt different now. Manageable, like something I could live with, instead of something that was slowly killing me. "We did it," I said, hardly believing it. But when I looked at Jenny, my heart sank. The beast's blood had splattered on her hands and arms when she drove the medal into its eye. Where the blood had touched her, her skin was changing. It looked paler, and her fingernails were growing longer and sharper before my eyes. "Mr. Harrison," she said in a small voice. "I don't feel right." I could see it happening. The curse was passing to her. The beast was dead, but its evil was finding a new home. Jenny's eyes were changing too. They were still brown, but there were flecks of yellow in them now. And when she smiled nervously, I could see that her teeth were getting sharper. "What's happening to me?" she asked. I didn't know what to tell her. How do you explain to a 22-year-old girl that monster blood is changing her into something that isn't quite human anymore? "We need to get you to a doctor," I said, even though I knew no doctor could help with this. As we walked back through the woods, I noticed that Jenny moved differently now. She was quieter, more graceful, like a cat. And once, when a bird landed on a branch near us, she tilted her head and watched it with the same intense focus I'd seen in the beast's eyes. We drove back to town in silence. I kept glancing at Jenny, watching for more changes. Her fingernails definitely looked sharper, and she kept licking her lips like she was tasting something. When we got to her family's farm, her father came running out to meet us. "Jenny." We heard something roaring out in the woods. "Are you all right?" She hugged him. but I saw her close her eyes and breathe in deeply, like she was smelling something good. When she pulled away, there was a strange look in her eyes. "I'm fine, Daddy," she said, "just tired." That night I sat in my cabin and wrote down everything that had happened. Someone needed to know the truth, even if they wouldn't believe it. The beast of Bladenborough was dead. The missing animals would stop disappearing. The fear that had gripped the community would fade. But Jenny Patterson would never be the same. Over the next few weeks, I watched her carefully. She stopped eating regular food and started staying out all night. Her family thought she was just stressed from our encounter with the beast. They didn't know what I knew. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear a cat yowling in the distance. Not a normal cat, something bigger. And I'd wonder if Jenny was out there in the darkness, learning what she'd become. The scar where the beast's claws had cut me healed, but it left permanent marks across my chest. A reminder that some fights leave you changed, even when you win. I kept my Bronze Star medal, but now it was stained with the beast's black blood. Sometimes, late at night, it would grow warm for no reason, like it was warning me that the danger wasn't really over, because monsters don't just die and disappear. Sometimes they pass their curse on to someone else. And sometimes that someone else is a young woman who tried to save your life. The people in town called me a hero for stopping the beast of Bladenborough. They didn't know about Jenny. They didn't know that I'd traded one monster for another. But I sleep better now than I have in years. The voices of the dead soldiers don't visit my dreams anymore. My wife's face doesn't haunt me with accusations. I learned something important that summer. Guilt doesn't have to destroy you. It can make you stronger if you let it. It can give you the courage to face monsters, even when you're afraid. Just remember, if you ever hear about animals going missing around Bladen Lakes, and if you see yellow eyes watching you from the darkness, don't go looking for Jenny Patterson, because she's not the same girl who helped me kill the beast. And some hungers, once awakened, never really go away. The beast of Bladenborough is dead, but its legacy lives on. My name is Maria Castellanos, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a park ranger in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. Most people think my job is boring, but they're wrong. Very wrong. It was a cold winter morning when everything changed. The snow crunched under my boots as I walked through the frozen forest. My breath came out in white clouds, and the air bit at my cheeks like tiny needles. I held my coffee thermos close to my chest, feeling its warmth through my thick gloves. The sun was just starting to come up, painting the white snow with soft pink and orange colors. Everything looked peaceful and quiet. Too quiet, actually. I should have known something was wrong right then. I used to be different, you know. 5 years ago, I was studying to be a vet. I wanted to help animals, to save them when they got hurt or sick. But then something terrible happened that changed everything. There was this little girl who brought her pet rabbit to the clinic where I was learning. The rabbit was very sick, and I had to do surgery on it. I thought I could save it. I really did. But my hands shook and I made a mistake. The rabbit died right there on the table. I'll never forget that little girl's face when I had to tell her. She cried so hard. Her mom had to carry her out because she couldn't stop crying. That night I had nightmares about it. Actually, I still have those nightmares sometimes. After that, I couldn't go back to vet school. I tried, but every time I picked up a scalpel, I'd remember that little girl's tears. So I became a park ranger instead. At least here, I could protect animals by watching over their homes in the forest. The Pine Barrens is a weird place. It's huge. Thousands and thousands of acres of pine trees, swamps, and old dirt roads that lead nowhere. Most people stay away from here. They say it's haunted or cursed. Maybe they're right. I've been walking these trails for 5 years now, and I know every tree, every creek, every animal track. The forest feels like home to me now. It's where I can forget about my failures and just be. But that morning felt different. The temperature was doing strange things. 1 minute it was freezing, cold. The next minute it felt warm like summer, then cold again. My thermometer couldn't make up its mind. I walked past the old hunter's cabin that's been empty for years. Its windows were dark and covered with frost, looking like dead eyes staring at nothing. I always got a creepy feeling when I walked by that place, but today it was worse. The air tasted funny too, kind of like metal, like when you lick a penny. And there was a smell I couldn't identify, something that made my stomach turn. I heard a hawk crying somewhere above me. When I looked up, I saw it flying in circles, around and around, like it was confused or scared. That was weird. Hawks don't usually act like that. As I kept walking, I noticed something strange about the ice on my truck's windshield. Instead of normal frost patterns, it looked like symbols or letters I couldn't read. Like someone had drawn them with their finger, but that was impossible. My truck had been parked here all night in the freezing cold. My radio was acting up too. It was supposed to connect me to the main office, but all I got was static. Deep in the Pine Barrens, cell phones don't work, so the radio is my only connection to the outside world. Without it, I was completely alone. I should have turned around right then. I should have gone back to the ranger station and called in sick. But I didn't. See, that day was special. Not in a good way. It was exactly 5 years since the rabbit died, since I failed that little girl. I guess I felt like I had something to prove, so I kept walking deeper into the forest, sipping my coffee and trying to ignore the weird feelings crawling up my spine. The snow was getting deeper, and my boots left clear tracks behind me. Above, more hawks started circling, and their cries sounded almost like warnings. I had no idea that this would be the day I'd meet something that would change my life forever. Something that shouldn't exist, but does. Something that's been hiding in these dark woods for almost 300 years, waiting for someone like me to stumble into its territory. If I had known what was waiting for me in those frozen woods, I would have run. I would have packed my bags and moved far away from New Jersey, but I didn't know. I just kept walking into the white, silent forest, completely unaware that I was being watched. About an hour into my patrol, I heard someone calling my name. It was Tommy Martinez, a local guy who volunteers with the Park Service sometimes. He's 26, born and raised in the Pine Barrens. His family has lived here for generations, and he knows these woods better than anyone. Maria, wait up! Tommy jogged toward me through the snow, his boots making loud crunching sounds. He was breathing hard and looked worried about something. What's wrong? I asked. Tommy never looked worried about anything. He was always smiling, always calm, but not today. I found something weird about a mile back, he said, catching his breath. You need to see it. We walked together back the way he came. Tommy kept looking around nervously, like he expected something to jump out at us. That made me nervous too. If Tommy was scared, something was really wrong. There, he said, pointing at the ground. Look at those tracks. I knelt down and studied them carefully. They started as normal footprints, human footprints with boots, just like mine and Tommy's. But as they went on, they changed. The heel marks got longer and pointier, and at the end, they weren't human at all. What kind of animal makes tracks? Like these? Tommy asked. I'd seen a lot of animal tracks in my 5 years as a ranger. Bear, deer, fox, raccoon, I knew them all. But these were different. They looked like hooves, split hooves, like a goat or a horse. But no horse or goat walks on 2 legs. I don't know, I said quietly. The tracks made my stomach feel sick. We followed the strange tracks deeper into the forest. They led us to a big oak tree that must have been hundreds of years old. When we got close, Tommy grabbed my arm. Look at the tree, he whispered. Someone, or something, had scratched letters into the bark. Deep scratches that went all the way, through to the wood underneath. The letters spelled out Leeds in rough, jagged marks. Leeds, I said out loud. That name sounds familiar. It should, Tommy said. That's the name from the old legend, the Jersey Devil. They say it was born to the Leeds family way back in the 1700s. I knew the story. Everyone who lives in New Jersey knows it. Mother Leeds had 12 children, and when she found out she was having a 13th, she cursed it. She said, "Let this one be the devil." And according to legend, that's exactly what happened. "It's just an old story," I said, but my voice didn't sound very sure. "Maybe," Tommy said, "but look around. You see any animals?" I listened carefully. The forest was completely silent. No birds singing, no squirrels chattering, no rabbits hopping through the snow. Even the insects were quiet. It was like every living thing had run away. That's when I smelled it, something burning, but not like wood or leaves. It smelled like sulfur, like when you light a match. But there was another smell mixed in that made me gag. It smelled like meat cooking, but rotten meat. "Do you smell that?" I asked Tommy. He nodded. "It's been getting stronger all morning." We kept following the tracks. They led us to a clearing where we found something that made both of us stop dead in our tracks. There were 5 horses lying in the snow. They belonged to the riding stable, about 3 miles away. But they weren't just dead. They looked like they'd been drained of every drop of blood. Their bodies were pale white, and there wasn't any blood in the snow around them. "We need to call this in," I said, reaching for my radio. But when I tried to use it, all I heard were voices, old-fashioned voices speaking in whispers, like they were scared of something. "Help us," one voice said. "It's coming back." "The devils." "Child hunts again," said another. Tommy heard it too. His face went white as the snow. "Maria, we should leave now." But before we could move, we heard something that froze the blood in our veins. A baby crying. Somewhere deep in the woods, a baby was crying like it was lost and scared. But there shouldn't be any babies out here. No one lived this deep in the Pine Barrens. The crying got louder and louder and stranger. It started to sound less like a baby and more like something else. Something that was trying to sound like a baby but wasn't very good at it. "That's not a baby," Tommy whispered. I knew he was right. But what was it? The temperature started doing that weird thing again. 1 second it was freezing cold, the next it felt hot like summer. The snow around. Certain trees began to melt, but not in a normal way. It melted in perfect circles, leaving behind black, burned earth. My compass had been working fine all morning, but now it was spinning like crazy. First it pointed north, then south, then it just spun in circles like it couldn't make up its mind. Above, as dark clouds started gathering in the sky, but just an hour ago, the weather report said it would be sunny all day. The clouds moved fast, too fast for normal weather. They swirled around like a storm was coming, but there was no wind. "Something's really wrong here," I said. Tommy nodded. "My grandfather used to tell stories about days like this. He said when the devil walks, the whole world goes crazy." I wanted to tell him that was just superstition, just old stories to scare kids. But looking at the dead horses, smelling that awful smell, hearing that fake baby crying, I wasn't so sure anymore. Then it spoke. But this time it used my grandmother's voice. The grandmother who had given me the cross, who had told me stories about good winning over evil. "Mija," it said in her voice. "Don't be afraid. Come outside and join your friend. We're all here waiting for you. Your mother is here too, and your grandfather, all the people you loved who died. We're all together now, and we want you to join us." Tears rolled down my face. I knew it was lying. I knew my family wasn't really out there. But hearing their voices again hurt so much. "They're not really here," I whispered to myself. "It's just lying." But part of me wanted to believe it. Part of me wanted to go outside and see my mom again. Even if it wasn't really her, the creature must have sensed my weakness because it kept talking in my grandmother's voice. "I'm disappointed in you, Maria. I gave you that cross to protect you, and you're hiding like a coward. Come outside and face what's coming. Be brave like I taught you." "Shut up," I yelled. "You're not my grandmother. My grandmother would never talk to me like that." The creature's laugh was like nails on a chalkboard. When it spoke again, it used its own horrible voice. "Smart girl, but it doesn't matter. You can't stay in there forever. And your friend Tommy is getting hungry, very hungry." Tommy growled outside, and it sounded like a wild animal. "Let me go in and get her," he said to the creature. "No," the creature replied. "She'll come out on her own. They always do." I looked around the cabin, trying to find something I could use to defend myself. But there was nothing, just old furniture and dust. That's when I noticed something strange about the floorboards near the fireplace. One of them looked different, newer, like it had been replaced recently. I knelt down and pushed on it. It moved. I pushed harder and the board came up, revealing a hiding space underneath. Inside the space was a metal box. I pulled it out and opened it carefully. What I found inside changed everything. There were old weapons inside, really old. A knife made of some kind of dark metal that felt strange and cold. Some bullets that looked different from normal bullets. And a note written in an old-fashioned style. The note said, "To whoever finds this, if the devil has returned, these weapons can hurt it. The knife and bullets are made with iron from a church. Fire them well. God help you. John Leeds, 1876. Leeds, that name again. But this time, it wasn't connected to the creature. Someone with the Leeds name had fought this thing before, and they'd won, at least for a while. I picked up the knife. It was heavier than it looked, and it felt warm in my hand. Not warm like my grandmother's cross, but warm like something powerful. Outside, Tommy was getting impatient. "Come out, Maria. I don't want to hurt you, but I will if I have to." But I could hear something else in his voice, something that gave me hope, pain. Tommy was still fighting the change, still trying to stay human. The creature seemed to sense this too. "Stop playing with her," it told Tommy. "Break down the door and bring her to me." "Wait," I called out. "Tommy, if you're still in there, if you can still hear me, I found something. Something that might help us." I held up the knife so they could see it through the window. The moment the creature saw it, it let out a shriek that made the windows shake. "Where did you get that?" it screamed. "Someone left it here for me," I said. "Someone who fought you before. Someone who won." The creature's red eyes blazed brighter. "Impossible. We killed all the Leeds family. All of them." "Maybe you missed one," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. Tommy stepped closer to the window. For just a moment, his eyes flickered from red back to brown. "Maria," he said in his real voice, "help me." That's when I knew what I had to do. I had to save Tommy, even if it meant fighting a monster I couldn't possibly beat, even if it meant failing again. But this time I wasn't going to fail. I couldn't. I took a deep breath and gripped the iron knife tighter. My grandmother's cross hung around my neck again. I'd put it back on when I found it. Maybe together they'd be enough. "Tommy," I called out, "I'm coming to help you, but you have to fight that thing. You have to try to stay yourself." The creature on the roof let out an angry shriek. "He's mine now. You can't save him." "Watch me," I said. I kicked open the cabin door and stepped outside. The cold air hit me like a punch, but I didn't stop. Tommy was standing in the snow, his body twisted and wrong, but his eyes were changing back and forth between red and brown. He was fighting. "Tommy, look at me," I said. "Remember who you are. Remember your family, your grandfather who told you stories about these woods." Tommy's face twisted in pain. "I can't. It hurts. Maria, it hurts so much." The creature jumped down from the roof and landed between us. Up close, it was even more terrible than I'd thought. Its horse-like face was covered in scars, and its teeth were long and yellow like old bones. "Enough!" it roared. "The boy's mine, and soon you will be too." It breathed fire at me. I dove to the side, rolling in the snow. The fire was so hot, it melted the snow instantly and left a black burn mark on the ground where I'd been standing. I got up and ran toward Tommy, holding the knife ready. But the creature was faster. It spread its huge wings and flew at me, claws extended. I swung the knife and caught it across the arm. The moment the iron touched its skin, it screamed louder than anything I'd ever heard. Smoke rose from the wound, and black blood dripped onto the snow. "Iron," it hissed. "Blessed iron, how did you know?" "Lucky guess," I said, backing away. The creature lunged at me again, but this time Tommy stepped in the way. Even half transformed, he was still trying to protect me. "No," Tommy said in his own voice, "you won't hurt her." The creature backhanded Tommy and sent him flying into a tree. He hit it hard and didn't get up. I could see blood in the snow around him. "Tommy!" I screamed. That's when I got angry, really angry, angrier than I'd ever been in my life. This monster had hurt my friend. It was trying to take him away from everything good in the world. And I wasn't going to let that happen. I charged at the creature with the knife. It tried to grab me with its claws, but I was too quick. I stabbed it in the chest, right where a human's heart would be. The creature screamed and staggered backward. More black blood poured from the wound, but it wasn't dead, not even close. "You think one little knife can kill me?" It laughed. "I've been alive for 300 years. I've survived everything your kind has thrown at me." It grabbed me by the throat with one clawed hand and lifted me off the ground. I couldn't breathe. I could feel the life being squeezed out of me, but I still had my grandmother's cross. With my last bit of strength, I pressed it against the creature's hand. The cross burned its skin like a hot iron. The creature dropped me and jumped back, howling in pain. I fell to the snow, gasping for air. The creature stood over me, ready to finish me off. But something stopped it. Tommy was getting up. His transformation was reversing. His claws were turning back into fingernails. His hooves were becoming feet again. And his eyes were brown again. "No," the creature said. "This is impossible. The change can't be reversed." "You're wrong," Tommy said. His voice was weak, but it was his voice. "Maria saved me. She reminded me who I am." The creature turned to look at Tommy, and that's when I saw my chance. I picked up the knife again and drove it as hard as I could into the creature's back. This time I hit something important. The creature arched its back and let out a scream that shattered the windows of the cabin. It spun around and slapped me, away with its wing. I hit the ground hard and tasted blood in my mouth, but the knife had done its job. The creature was dying. Black blood poured from its wounds, and its red eyes were getting dimmer. "You haven't won," it gasped. "I put a curse on you, on your bloodline. Your children and your children's children will never be safe from us. We will always be hunting them." "Then I guess it's a good thing I don't plan to have children," I said. The creature laughed, even as it was dying. "You think you have a choice? The future is already written. I've seen it." With those words, the Jersey Devil collapsed in the snow. Its body began to smoke and burn, even though there was no fire. Within minutes, there was nothing left but ash and a bad smell. Tommy crawled over to me through the snow. He looked human. Again, but weak and hurt. "Is it over?" he asked. "I think so," I said. We sat there in the snow for a long time, neither of us able to believe we were still alive. Finally, I helped Tommy to his feet, and we made our way back toward the ranger station. As we walked, I thought about what the creature had said, about my children being cursed. But I meant what I'd said. I didn't plan to have children. I'd stick to taking care of animals instead. At least I was good at that. It wasn't until years later that I found out the Jersey Devil had been right. About one thing. The future was already written. I met a man, fell in love, and had a daughter despite my plans. And on her 18th birthday, something came hunting for her in the night. But that's another story for another time. For now, all that mattered was that Tommy and I were alive, and the monster was dead. I'd finally saved someone when it counted. Maybe I wasn't such a failure after all. Then it spoke, but this time it used my grandmother's voice. The grandmother who had given me the cross, who had told me stories about good winning over evil. "Mija," it said in her voice. Don't be afraid. Come outside and join your friend. We're all here waiting for you. Your mother is here too, and your grandfather, all the people you loved who died. We're all together now, and we want you to join us." Tears rolled down my face. I knew it was lying. I knew my family wasn't really out there. But hearing their voices again hurt so much. "They're not really here," I whispered to myself. "It's just lying." But part of me wanted to believe it. Part of me wanted to go outside and see my mom again. Even if it wasn't really her, the creature must have sensed my weakness because it kept talking in my grandmother's voice. "I'm disappointed in you, Maria. I gave you that cross to protect you, and you're hiding like a coward. Come outside and face what's coming. Be brave like I taught you." "Shut up," I yelled. "You're not my grandmother. My grandmother would never talk to me like that." The creature's laugh was like nails on a chalkboard. When it spoke again, it used its own horrible voice. "Smart girl, but it doesn't matter. You can't stay in there forever. And your friend Tommy is getting hungry, very hungry." Tommy growled outside, and it sounded like a wild animal. "Let me go in and get her," he said to the creature. "No," the creature replied. "She'll come out on her own. They always do." I looked around the cabin, trying to find something I could use to defend myself. But there was nothing, just old furniture and dust. That's when I noticed something strange about the floorboards near the fireplace. One of them looked different, newer, like it had been replaced recently. I knelt down and pushed on it. It moved. I pushed harder, and the board came up, revealing a hiding space underneath. Inside the space was a metal box. I pulled it out and opened it carefully. What I found inside changed everything. There were old weapons inside, really old. A knife made of some kind of dark metal that felt strange and cold. Some bullets that looked different from normal bullets. And a note written in an old-fashioned style. The note said, "To whoever finds this, if the devil has returned, these weapons can hurt it. The knife and bullets are made with iron from a church. Fire them well. God help you. John Leeds, 1876. Leeds, that name again. But this time, it wasn't connected to the creature. Someone with the Leeds name had fought this thing before, and they'd won, at least for a while. I picked up the knife. It was heavier than it looked, and it felt warm in my hand. Not warm like my grandmother's cross, but warm like something powerful. Outside, Tommy was getting impatient. "Come out, Maria. I don't want to hurt you, but I will if I have to." But I could hear something else in his voice, something that gave me hope, pain. Tommy was still fighting the change, still trying to stay human. The creature seemed to sense this too. "Stop playing with her," it told Tommy. "Break down the door and bring her to me." "Wait," I called out. "Tommy, if you're still in there, if you can still hear me, I found something. Something that might help us." I held up the knife so they could see it through the window. The moment the creature saw it, it let out a shriek that made the windows shake. "Where did you get that?" it screamed. "Someone left it here for me," I said. "Someone who fought you before. Someone who won." The creature's red eyes blazed brighter. "Impossible. We killed all the Leeds family. All of them." "Maybe you missed one," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. Tommy stepped closer to the window. For just a moment, his eyes flickered from red back to brown. "Maria," he said in his real voice, "help me." That's when I knew what I had to do. I had to save Tommy, even if it meant fighting a monster I couldn't possibly beat, even if it meant failing again. But this time I wasn't going to fail. I couldn't. I took a deep breath and gripped the iron knife tighter. My grandmother's cross hung around my neck again. I'd put it back on when I found it. Maybe together they'd be enough. "Tommy," I called out, "I'm coming to help you, but you have to fight that thing. You have to try to stay yourself." The creature on the roof let out an angry shriek. "He's mine now. You can't save him." "Watch me," I said. I kicked open the cabin door and stepped outside. The cold air hit me like a punch, but I didn't stop. Tommy was standing in the snow, his body twisted and wrong, but his eyes were changing back and forth between red and brown. He was fighting. "Tommy, look at me," I said. "Remember who you are. Remember your family, your grandfather who told you stories about these woods." Tommy's face twisted in pain. "I can't. It hurts. Maria, it hurts so much." The creature jumped down from the roof and landed between us. Up close, it was even more terrible than I'd thought. Its horse-like face was covered in scars, and its teeth were long and yellow like old bones. "Enough!" it roared. "The boy's mine, and soon you will be too." It breathed fire at me. I dove to the side, rolling in the snow. The fire was so hot, it melted the snow instantly and left a black burn mark on the ground where I'd been standing. I got up and ran toward Tommy, holding the knife ready. But the creature was faster. It spread its huge wings and flew at me, claws extended. I swung the knife and caught it across the arm. The moment the iron touched its skin, it screamed louder than anything I'd ever heard. Smoke rose from the wound, and black blood dripped onto the snow. "Iron," it hissed. "Blessed iron, how did you know?" "Lucky guess," I said, backing away. The creature lunged at me again, but this time Tommy stepped in the way. Even half transformed, he was still trying to protect me. "No," Tommy said in his own voice. "You won't hurt her." The creature backhanded Tommy and sent him flying into a tree. He hit it hard and didn't get up. I could see blood in the snow around him. "Tommy!" I screamed. That's when I got angry, really angry, angrier than I'd ever been in my life. This monster had hurt my friend. It was trying to take him away from everything good in the world, and I wasn't going to let that happen. I charged at the creature with the knife. It tried to grab me with its claws, but I was too quick. I stabbed it in the chest, right where a human's heart would be. The creature screamed and staggered backward. More black blood poured from the wound, but it wasn't dead, not even close. "You think one little knife can kill me?" It laughed. "I've been alive for 300 years. I've survived everything your kind has thrown at me." It grabbed me by the throat with one clawed hand and lifted me off the ground. I couldn't breathe. I could feel the life being squeezed out of me, but I still had my grandmother's cross. With my last bit of strength, I pressed it against the creature's hand. The cross burned its skin like a hot iron. The creature dropped me and jumped back, howling in pain. I fell to the snow, gasping for air. The creature stood over me, ready to finish me off. But something stopped it. Tommy was getting up. His transformation was reversing. His claws were turning back into fingernails. His hooves were becoming feet again. And his eyes were brown again. "No," the creature said. "This is impossible. The change can't be reversed." "You're wrong," Tommy said. His voice was weak, but it was his voice. "Maria saved me. She reminded me who I am." The creature turned to look at Tommy, and that's when I saw my chance. I picked up the knife again and drove it as hard as I could into the creature's back. This time I hit something important. The creature arched its back and let out a scream that shattered the windows of the cabin. It spun around and slapped me, away with its wing. I hit the ground hard and tasted blood in my mouth, but the knife had done its job. The creature was dying. Black blood poured from its wounds, and its red eyes were getting dimmer. "You haven't won," it gasped. "I put a curse on you, on your bloodline. Your children and your children's children will never be safe from us. We will always be hunting them." "Then I guess it's a good thing I don't plan to have children," I said. The creature laughed, even as it was dying. "You think you have a choice? The future is already written. I've seen it." With those words, the Jersey Devil collapsed in the snow. Its body began to smoke and burn, even though there was no fire. Within minutes, there was nothing left but ash and a bad smell. Tommy crawled over to me through the snow. He looked human. Again, but weak and hurt. "Is it over?" he asked. "I think so," I said. We sat there in the snow for a long time, neither of us able to believe we were still alive. Finally, I helped Tommy to his feet, and we made our way back toward the ranger station As we walked, I thought about what the creature had said, about my children being cursed. But I meant what I'd said. I didn't plan to have children. I'd stick to taking care of animals instead. At least I was good at that. It wasn't until years later that I found out the Jersey Devil had been right. About one thing, the future was already written. I met a man, fell in love, and had a daughter despite my plans. And on her 18th birthday, something came hunting for her in the night. But that's another story for another time. For now, all that mattered was that Tommy and I were alive, and the monster was dead. I'd finally saved someone when it counted. Maybe I wasn't such a failure after all. My name is Dorothy McKinnon, but everyone calls me Dot. I'm 31 years old, and I work as a park ranger at Buffalo National River in Arkansas. Right now, I'm paddling my canoe down the river as the sun starts to set. The autumn leaves are falling, all around me, floating on the water like nature's confetti. Some are bright red, others golden yellow, and they make gentle splashing sounds when they hit the river. The water moves softly under my canoe, making little lapping sounds against the sides. Every now and then, a fish jumps up to catch a bug, creating perfect circles on the water's surface. I love this time of day. Everything feels so peaceful. I start humming a little tune as I paddle. My voice echoes off the big limestone rocks that rise up from both sides of the river. It's like the whole river is singing back to me. Somewhere in the forest, I hear a barred owl calling. Who cooks for you?" it seems to say. In the distance, coyotes are howling, but they sound far away and friendly somehow. This river has become my home, my healing place. You see, I used to be a singer. Not just any singer. I sang in nightclubs and dreamed of making it big, but years of cigarettes and singing in smoky rooms damaged my voice. Now, being out here on the quiet river helps my throat feel better. As darkness starts to fall, bats come flying out of the caves in the rocks. They make little chittering sounds as they swoop around, catching insects. I'm not scared of them. After 2 years of working on this river, I've gotten used to all the night sounds. I'm miles away from any road or telephone out here. The only way home is to follow the river current. That's okay with me. I like being alone with nature. The air is getting cooler, and I can see fog starting to rise from the warm water. It makes ghostly shapes in the moonlight, like spirits dancing on the river. Somewhere upstream, a beaver slaps its tail on the water. Slap! The sound echoes off the rocks like a gunshot, making me jump a little. Then something strange happens. The wind carries a sound, a tune I don't recognize, but somehow deep down inside it feels familiar, like a song I heard in a dream. It makes the hair on my arms stand up. I shake my head and keep paddling. It's probably just the wind playing tricks on me. But as I move down the river, I can't shake the feeling that something is different tonight. The usual river sounds seem off somehow, like they're all part of some bigger song I can't quite hear yet. The autumn air smells like wet leaves and that clean smell rivers have. But mixed in with it, there's something else, something I can't quite name. It's not bad, just different. I pull my jacket tighter around me and keep paddling downstream. Home is still a few miles away, and I want to get there before it gets completely dark. But that strange tune keeps floating on the wind, and I find myself humming along without even realizing it. Whatever that sound is, it's getting stronger as I float down the river. And for some reason, it's making my damaged vocal cords tingle in a way they haven't in years. I should tell you more about why I'm out here, floating on this river in the middle of nowhere. 3 years ago, I was in Nashville. Music City, they call it. I thought I was going to make it big. I had dreams of singing on the Grand Ole Opry stage, of hearing my songs on the radio. But dreams don't always come true, do they? My last audition was for a record company. It was my big chance. I walked onto that stage, opened my mouth to sing, and nothing came out right. My voice cracked. I couldn't hit the high notes anymore. Years of smoking and singing in loud clubs had finally caught up with me. I ran off that stage and kept running until I ended up here in Arkansas. Sometimes I wonder if it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Now I paddle this river every day, checking on campers, making sure the water's clean, watching for problems. My hands are tough from all the paddle work. The guitar calluses on my fingertips help me grip the rope when I tie up my canoe. I still have bright blue eyes, though. Marcus Thompson, he's a friend of mine, says they still have that sparkle. Singers get when they perform. Marcus knows about music. He's a researcher who studies folk songs and old mountain music. Sometimes Marcus comes out on the river with me. He brings all kinds of recording equipment, trying to capture the natural sounds of the Ozarks. He says this area has the most interesting acoustic properties he's ever heard. The way sounds bounce off the rocks and caves creates echoes that seem almost magical. Tonight, though, I'm alone. I wanted to be by myself to think. I reach into my jacket pocket and pull out my grandmother's locket. Inside is a tiny piece of sheet music. An old lullaby she used to sing to me. When I feel lonely out here, I hold it and remember her voice. It was sweet and clear. Nothing like mine ever was. 2 years of working on this river has taught me to read the water, to know which parts are safe and which aren't. I know every bend, every rock, every place where the current gets tricky. But tonight, something feels different. The locals in town have been talking more than usual lately. They whisper about something in these woods, something they call the Ozark howler. They say it's a creature that lives in the caves along the river. They say its howl can drive people crazy. Most folks think it's just old mountain superstition, but I've heard some strange things out here at night. Sounds that don't match any animal I know. The Park Service gets reports sometimes. Hikers who claim they heard something impossible, something that made them run back to their cars and never return. I've always been the type of person who needs to know the truth about things. My mom used to say I was too curious for my own good. That's probably why I wanted to come out here tonight. I brought my little tape recorder with me. If there's really something out there making strange sounds, I want proof. The moon is getting brighter now, casting silver light on the water. I can see my breath in the cool air. Somewhere in the forest, an owl hoots again. But underneath all the normal night sounds, that strange tune is still there. It's getting clearer now, like someone's tuning a radio and finding the right station. The melody is sad, but beautiful, like a song you'd hear at a funeral or a wedding. It makes my chest feel tight, like I might cry. What's really strange is that my throat doesn't hurt when I hear it. For the first time in years, I feel like I could sing along. Really sing, not just the whispered humming I've been doing since I lost my voice. I paddle closer to shore where the sound seems to be coming from. My heart is beating a little faster now, but I tell myself it's just excitement. Maybe I'm finally going to solve the mystery of the Ozark howler. As I get closer to the bank, I notice something odd. The water near the shore is perfectly still. Like glass, not even the small waves from my canoe seem to disturb it, and the air smells different here, not just like river and leaves anymore. There's something else mixed in, something that reminds me of wet fur, like a dog that's been swimming, but stronger than that, and not altogether pleasant. I pull out my tape recorder and press record. Whatever's making that beautiful, sad music, I'm going to capture it. For the first time in 3 years, I feel like I'm about to do something important. Again. But as I float closer to shore, that feeling in my stomach tells me maybe I should turn around and paddle home fast. Too bad I've never been good at listening to that feeling. The first thing I notice is that my little tape recorder starts acting weird. The red recording light blinks on and off, and I can hear a strange buzzing sound coming from it. It's like when you put a cell phone too close to a radio and it makes that crackling noise. I tap the side of it, thinking maybe the batteries are dying. But then I feel something in my stomach, like when you're on a roller coaster and it drops really fast. The feeling makes me want to throw up. I look down at the water and see something that makes my heart skip. There are fish floating on their backs. Dead fish, not just one or two, dozens of them, bobbing in the water like little white boats. Some of them look swollen, like balloons that got too much air. This isn't normal. I've worked on this river for 2 years, and I've never seen anything like this. Fish don't just die like this all at once. I paddle a little further, and the sounds get even weirder. That beautiful melody I heard before is still there, but now there are other sounds mixed in. It's like hearing 5 different songs playing at the same time, but somehow they all fit together. It shouldn't work, but it does. The music seems to bounce off the rocks in ways that don't make sense. One note comes from my left, bounces off a cliff and comes back from my right, but sounds completely different. Like the rocks are changing the music somehow. And that smell I noticed before, it's getting stronger. Wet dog, but worse than that. Like wet dog mixed with the smell of rotten eggs. It hangs in the air like a thick fog, making me want to cover my nose. I paddle around a bend in the river and see something that makes me stop moving altogether. There's a campsite on the shore, or what's left of one. The tent looks like something, with very sharp claws, tore it apart from the inside. The fabric is in ribbons, hanging from the trees like strange decorations. I paddle closer to shore, my hands shaking a little now. There are dark stains on the tent fabric. They look like blood. But there's no body anywhere, no camping gear scattered around, just that destroyed tent and those dark stains. I pick up my tape recorder again and realize it's doing something impossible. It's playing music, but I didn't record any music. And the voice singing, it sounds like me, but I know I didn't sing anything into this recorder. The voice coming from my recorder is singing that same strange melody, but in my voice. Only it's better than my voice ever was, even before it got damaged. It's clear and strong and beautiful, everything I always wanted my voice to be. I turn the recorder off, but the singing doesn't stop. It's coming from somewhere else now, echoing off the rocks, coming from multiple directions at once, like there's a whole choir hiding in the caves, all singing that impossible song. I notice my mouth moving. I'm humming along without meaning to. The tune is in my head now, like when you hear a catchy song on the radio and can't stop thinking about it. But this is different. This feels like the song is thinking about me. Then I see the claw marks. They're carved into the rock face near the destroyed campsite. Deep gouges in the stone, arranged in neat lines, but they're not random scratches. They look like music notes on a staff. Someone or something carved musical notation into solid rock with its claws. I try to sing a normal song, just happy birthday or something simple, but when I open my mouth, the sound that comes out isn't my voice at all. It's like the sound of glass breaking or chalk on a blackboard. It hurts my throat and makes me cough. That's when I hear the call. It starts low, like the sound a cow makes, but deeper. Then it gets higher, like a wolf howling at the moon. But it doesn't stop there. It keeps going up and up until it's so high it makes my ears ring. Then it drops back down and starts over. The sound doesn't come from just one place. It echoes off every rock, every tree, every surface around me. It's like the whole forest is howling. And I realize something that makes my blood feel like ice water. I'm humming along with it. My damaged voice that can barely whisper is somehow keeping perfect harmony with this impossible sound. I grab my paddle and start trying to turn my canoe around. Time to go home. Time to get as far away from here as possible. But the current feels strange now, like it's pushing me toward shore instead of downstream. The howling gets louder, and I hear other sounds mixing in. Sounds like an orchestra tuning up. Like voices calling my name, like my grandmother singing that old lullaby from her sheet music. My hands are shaking so hard I can barely hold the paddle. The tape recorder in my lap crackles to life again, playing back my voice, singing words I don't remember saying. Come home, Dorothy, come sing with us. Your voice is what we've been waiting for. I didn't record those words. I know I didn't. But there's my voice, clear as day, inviting me to join whatever is making that terrible, beautiful song. That's when I see the eyes watching me from the darkness between the trees. At first, I think maybe it's just a deer or a raccoon. Animals have shiny eyes at night when light hits them, but these eyes are different. They're too big, too bright, and they're glowing like hot coals in a fire. Then I see the shape behind the eyes, and my brain tries to make sense of what I'm looking at. It's big, bigger than any bear I've ever seen. The thing moves between the trees, and with each step, it seems to change shape somehow, like looking at clouds that shift and change as you watch them. The creature steps out from the trees, and I get my first real look at it. It has dark, shaggy fur covering its whole body. But the fur moves wrong, like it's underwater instead of in air. Its face is the worst part. It's like someone took pieces of a big cat, a bear, and something else, something that shouldn't exist, and put them all together wrong. But it's the sounds coming from this thing that really scare me. The creature opens its mouth, and that howling starts again. But now I can see where it's coming from. Only the sound doesn't match what I see. The howl has layers to it, high notes and low notes, all happening at the same time. It's like listening to a whole church choir, but it's coming from just one throat. And that's when something impossible happens. Marcus Thompson steps out from behind the creature. Marcus, my friend who studies folk music. Marcus, who should be safe at home right now. But he's here, and he's wrong somehow. His eyes look empty, like no one's home behind them. And when he opens his mouth to speak, that beautiful, terrible music comes out instead of words. Marcus, I call out, my voice weak and shaky. Marcus, what are you doing here? He turns to look at me, and I can see that it's really him. Same brown hair, same clothes he always wears when we go out on the river. But when he smiles at me, his mouth moves like he's singing, and that impossible music keeps coming out. The creature, this Ozark howler that the locals whisper about, tilts its head and looks right at me. When it does, I feel something strange happening to my throat. For the first time in 3 years, I feel like I could really sing again. My damaged vocal cords start to tingle, but I know this is wrong. I know I should be afraid. I know I should paddle away as fast as I can. Instead, I find myself humming along with the music, and my voice sounds good, really good. Better than it ever did, even when I was young and dreaming of Nashville. The creature makes a sound that's almost like purring, and Marcus nods like he understands. Then Marcus starts singing, really singing. Not just making those wordless sounds, but his voice can do things no human voice should be able to do. It goes up so high, it makes my ears hurt, then drops down so low I feel it in my chest like thunder. Realize what's happening. The creature is controlling Marcus somehow, using him like a human instrument, and now it wants to do the same thing to me. The Ozark howler takes a step closer to the water's edge, and with each step, I hear more sounds, joining its song. The trees seem to be creaking in rhythm. The water starts lapping against my canoe in time with the music. Even my own heartbeat seems to match the creature's terrible song. The thing starts moving its mouth in a different way, and suddenly I can hear voices. Not just Marcus's voice, but other voices too. Voices singing my name, calling me to shore. Some of them sound like people I know. One of them sounds like my grandmother. Dorothy, the voice that sounds like my grandmother sings. Come sing with us, honey. Your voice is so beautiful. Don't hide it anymore. I know it's not really her. My grandmother died 5 years ago, but hearing her voice makes my chest tight with longing. The creature keeps looking at me with those burning eyes, and I start to understand. It doesn't just want to control my voice like it's controlling Marcus. It wants to use my voice to make its song stronger, to make it carry further. I think about all those reports park rangers get about people hearing impossible things in these woods. I think about hikers running back to their cars, scared out of their minds. I think about that destroyed campsite and those blood stains. This thing has been here all along, calling to people with its song, and most of them probably came, just like I'm wanting to come right now. My hands don't want to hold the paddle anymore. My body wants to jump out of this canoe and swim to shore. My voice wants to join that beautiful, terrible choir. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I remember something my grandmother really did teach me. A lullaby she used to sing when I had nightmares. A simple, quiet song that always made me feel safe. Without thinking, I start to hum it under my breath, just barely loud enough for me to hear. And something amazing happens. The creature's song wavers, just for a second, like a radio losing its signal. Marcus stumbles, and for just a moment, his eyes look normal again. He looks around confused, like he just woke up from a dream. "Dorothy," he says in his real voice, "how did I get here? What's happening?" But then the creature roars. Not sings, but roars like an angry animal, and Marcus's eyes go empty again. I realize I might have found something important. My grandmother's lullaby, a simple human song, seems to interfere with whatever power this thing has. The problem is, I don't know if I'm strong enough to sing it loud enough to matter. And even if I am, I don't know if I can do it before the creature makes me into another puppet like Marcus. The Ozark howler steps into the water, moving toward my canoe. Its song gets louder and more complex, like it's putting more power into it. I can feel my will slipping away, note by note. The water around my canoe starts to get warm, even though the night air is cold. The creature is almost close enough to touch my boat now. Its eyes never leave mine, and I can feel its song pulling at something deep inside my chest. Marcus starts walking into the water toward me, but he's moving like a sleepwalker. His mouth is open, and he's making sounds that hurt to listen to. Sounds no human throat should be able to make. "Marcus, fight it!" I try to yell, but my voice comes out as barely a whisper. The creature's song is so loud now that I can feel it in my bones. My teeth are chattering, not from cold, but from the vibrations. And the worst part is, I want to sing along. Every fiber in my body wants to join that terrible, beautiful music. But I remember my grandmother's lullaby. I hold on to it like a life. Wrapped in a storm, I close my eyes and try to sing it louder. My damaged voice cracks and breaks, but I keep trying. "Rockabye, baby, in the treetop," I force out, my throat burning with each word. When I open my eyes, I see Marcus stop walking. He's standing waist-deep in the water, swaying back and forth like he's fighting something inside his head. The creature makes a noise that sounds angry. It turns its glowing eyes from me to Marcus, and its song changes, gets meaner somehow, more demanding. Marcus screams. It's not a human scream. It's the sound of someone's voice being torn apart from the inside. Blood starts coming from his mouth, but he keeps making those impossible sounds the creature wants him to make. I realize I have to make a choice. I can try to save Marcus, or I can try to stop this thing before it hurts more people. But I don't think I can do both. Marcus looks at me one more time, and for just a second, his eyes are clear. He mouths the word "go" before that emptiness takes over again. I grab my tape recorder, the one that's been acting so strange, and I smash it against the bottom of my canoe as hard as I can. Sparks fly, and it makes a loud screeching noise. Like feedback when you put a microphone too close to a speaker. The creature jerks back like I hit it. Its song stops for just a moment, and in that silence, I hear Marcus take a gasping breath. "The equipment," he yells in his real voice. "Dorothy, use the recording equipment." Before the creature can grab control of him again, Marcus reaches into the water and pulls up a waterproof bag. It must be the recording gear he uses to study folk music. He throws it toward my canoe, and I catch it just as the creature's song starts up again. Inside the bag, I find a small speaker and some wires. My hands are shaking so bad I can barely hold them, but I manage to connect the speaker to the broken tape recorder. The feedback screech gets louder, and now it's coming from the speaker too. The creature's song wavers like a radio losing signal. The thing backs away from the noise, making sounds like a hurt animal. But I know this won't last long. I need something more. That's when I remember what my grandmother always said about her. Lullaby. She said it was special because it was sung with love, not just with a voice. She said love could overcome any darkness. I think about Marcus, who's been my friend for 2 years. I think about all the people who might come to this river after me. I think about my grandmother, who believed her simple song could keep the nightmares away. I take the deepest breath I can and start to sing. Not the Ozark howler's impossible music. Just my grandmother's lullaby. Simple words, simple tune, sung with all the love I have in my heart. Rock-a-bye baby in the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. My voice is terrible. It cracks and breaks and sounds nothing like it did when I was young. But I keep singing anyway. The creature's song fights against mine. It gets louder and more complex, like it's trying to drown out my simple lullaby. But something strange happens. The more I sing, the weaker its song becomes. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and down will come baby, cradle and all. Marcus staggers in the water. The empty look leaves his eyes, and he starts swimming toward shore, away from the creature. The Ozark howler lets out a roar that shakes the trees. It turns those burning eyes on me, full of hate and hunger. Then it opens its mouth and sings directly at me. The sound hits me like a physical blow. My ears start bleeding. My throat feels like it's being torn apart. But I keep singing my grandmother's lullaby, even though each word feels like swallowing broken glass. The creature's song and mine crash together in the air above the river. I can see the sound waves somehow. Ripples of dark and light fighting each other. That's when the creature does something that changes everything. It points at me and makes a sound like nothing I've ever heard before, like the sound of every nightmare I've ever had. I feel something break inside my throat, not just my voice, something deeper than that. The creature is cursing me somehow, mocking me with its song, but my lullaby doesn't stop. Even as I feel my voice being destroyed, the song keeps coming out, getting weaker with each note, but still there. The creature backs away, step by step, until it reaches the far shore. It looks at me one last time, and I swear I can see satisfaction in those glowing eyes. Like it got what it wanted after all. Then it disappears into the darkness between the trees. Marcus makes it to shore and collapses on the bank, coughing up river water. He's alive. He's going to be okay. But I'm not. I try to say his name, and only a whisper comes out. I try to sing, just a little, and the sound that comes from my throat makes Marcus look up in horror. The creature kept its promise. It gave me back my voice, just long enough to save Marcus. But now, it's taken something even more precious than my ability to sing. Now, when I try to use my voice for anything more than a whisper, other people start humming that terrible tune. They get that empty look in their eyes that Marcus had. They start walking toward whatever dark place the creature lives. I paddle back home in silence, and I never sing again, not even in the shower, not even when I'm alone. Because I learned something that night on the Buffalo River. Some songs are too dangerous to sing, and some prices are too high to pay, even for the thing you want most in the world. Marcus never remembers exactly what happened that night. He thinks we got lost on the river and he hit his head on a rock. That's better for both of us, but sometimes when the wind blows just right through the trees, I can still hear that creature's song calling to me, reminding me that it's still out there, waiting for the next person who thinks they can handle its terrible, beautiful music. And sometimes, late at night when I'm completely alone, I catch myself humming along. My name is Carlos Vega, and I'm a park ranger at Big Bend National Park in Texas. I'm 39 years old, and before this job, I worked as a border patrol agent for 15 years. That job taught me to see things others miss, to read the signs. The desert leaves behind. The day everything changed started like any other hot July morning. The sun was already beating down hard at 7 in the morning, and heat waves were dancing above the cactus plants. I was driving my park truck down a dusty trail, going to check on some reports we'd gotten about dead animals. A rancher named Tom Martinez had called the park office 3 days ago. He was upset, saying something had killed 5 of his cattle. Not normal kills, he kept saying. Something's wrong out there, Ranger Vega, real wrong. I'd seen plenty of dead animals in my time. Coyotes, mountain lions, even illegal hunters sometimes left a mess behind. But Tom sounded scared, and Tom Martinez wasn't a man who scared easily. He'd been ranching this desert for 40 years. As I drove deeper into the park, vultures were flying in circles overhead. Their shadows moved across the cracked, dry earth below me. The only sound for miles was the Rio Grande flowing slowly nearby. Its muddy water made a gentle noise that usually made me feel peaceful. Today, it didn't. Roadrunner suddenly ran across my path, moving fast between the creosote bushes before disappearing into the endless brown landscape. Everything looked normal, but something felt off. The desert has a way of talking to you if you listen close enough. Today, it was whispering warnings. This kind of isolation reminded me of my border patrol days. Dangerous, but somehow peaceful. At the same time, out here, you could go for hours without seeing another person. The nearest ranger station was 40 miles away through rough, rocky ground. My radio hardly worked out here because of all the mountains. I stopped my truck and got out to check my equipment. The thermometer on my belt was acting strange. It kept jumping between normal desert heat and readings that didn't make sense. 1 minute it showed 95 degrees, the next it spiked to 120. Then dropped to 75. I tapped it a few times, thinking it was broken. In the distance, I could see an old ranch house at the end of the trail. Its metal roof was reflecting sunlight like a mirror. That's where Tom said I'd find the dead cattle. As I drove toward it, dust devils were spinning far off, carrying the smell of sage plants and something else. Something that smelled rotten. The wind was weird, too. It kept changing direction, and sometimes it sounded like it was carrying whispers in Spanish. But the words didn't sound like any Spanish I knew, and I'd been speaking it my whole life. Wasn't alone out here. Dr. Elena Santos was meeting me at the ranch house. She was a veterinarian from El Paso who specialized in strange animal deaths. The Park Service had called her in because the local vet couldn't figure out what had killed Tom's cattle. Elena and I had worked together twice before on unusual cases. She was smart and brave, which you had to be to drive alone into the middle of nowhere to look at dead animals. She also didn't scare easily, which I respected. As I got closer to the ranch house, I could see her white truck already parked there. She was standing next to it, looking at something on the ground. Even from a distance, I could tell by her body language that whatever she was looking at wasn't normal. I parked next to her truck and got out. The heat hit me like a wall, but there was something else in the air. A feeling that made the hair on my arms stand up. Elena looked up at me, and I could see worry in her eyes. "Carlos," she said, "I've been waiting for you to get here. You need to see this." I followed her toward the back of the ranch house. My boots crunched on the dry earth with each step. The closer we got to whatever she wanted to show me, the stronger that rotten smell became. "How long have you been here?" I asked. "About an hour," she said. "I got here early because I couldn't sleep last night." I kept thinking about what Tom described on the phone. We walked around a corner of the house, and that's when I saw my first dead cow. It was lying on its side, and at first glance it looked like it might have just died of heat. But as we got closer, I could see this was nothing normal. Elena knelt down next to the animal. "Look at this, Carlos. Look at the neck." I got down on one knee beside her. The cow had 2 small holes in its neck, perfectly round, and about an inch apart. They looked like someone had used a drill to make them. They were so clean and precise. What kind of animal makes holes like that? I asked. That's just it, Elena said. I've never seen anything like it. And look at this. She pointed to the cow's face. Its eyes were wide open like it had been scared when it died. But more than that, the whole cow looked empty, like something had been drained out of it. Carlos, this animal has almost no blood left in its body. And I've checked. There's no blood on the ground anywhere around it. I stood up and looked around. She was right. With holes like that in its neck, there should have been blood everywhere. The ground should have been soaked with it, but the earth around the cow was dry. Where's the rest of them? I asked. Elena pointed toward a group of trees about 50 yards away. 4 more over there, all exactly the same. As we walked toward the other cattle, I noticed something else strange. Usually when you find dead animals in the desert, they're covered with flies. Flies love the smell of death. But I didn't see a single fly anywhere. Not one. The desert was also quiet in a way that felt wrong. No birds singing, no insects buzzing, no sounds of small animals moving around in the bushes. It was like everything alive had left this place. When we reached the other 4 cows, I saw Elena was right. All of them had the same 2 holes in their necks. All of them looked drained and empty. All of them had that same scared look in their dead eyes. Elena, I said, in all your years as a vet, have you ever seen anything like this? She was quiet for a moment, then shook her head. Never. And Carlos, there's something else, something I haven't told you yet. What? Tom Martinez called me again last night, after he'd already filed the report with the Park Service. He was scared, really scared. He said he saw something near his cattle the night before last. Something that wasn't natural. What did he see? He said he saw glowing red eyes, about 3 feet off the ground, moving around his cattle like it was hunting. When he went to get his gun, whatever it was just disappeared. I felt a chill run down my spine, even though the temperature was over 90 degrees. In my 15 years with Border Patrol, I'd seen some strange things in the desert at night. Smugglers using weird technology, people who seemed to vanish into thin air. I'd learned not to question everything I couldn't explain, but the night. My partner died still haunted me. We'd been patrolling near the Rio Grande when we saw something cross the river. Something that moved too fast to be human. My partner went to investigate, and I found him 20 minutes later. He was drained of blood, with 2 holes in his neck just like these cows. The official report said he'd been killed by smugglers. But I knew better. I'd seen those red eyes that night too. Carlos? Eleanor's voice brought me back to the present. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, I lied. Let's keep looking around. Maybe we can find some tracks or other signs of what did this. But as we started walking around the area, looking for clues, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had killed these cattle was still watching us. Somewhere out there in the desert, something was hungry, and it had found new prey. Elena and I spent the next hour walking around the dead cattle, looking for anything that might tell us what happened. The sun was getting higher, and the heat was becoming unbearable. Sweat dripped down my face, but I felt cold inside. Carlos, come look at this, Eleanor called out. She was kneeling by the first cow we'd found. I walked over to her. She was holding a small flashlight, shining it on the cow's neck wounds. See this green stuff around the holes? She asked. I looked closer. There was a thin coating of something that looked like green slime around each puncture wound. It was shiny and seemed to glow slightly in the flashlight beam. What is it? I asked. I don't know, but don't touch it. Elena took out a small plastic bag and carefully scraped some of the green substance into it. I'll test this back at the lab. As she worked, I noticed the smell was getting stronger. Not just the rotten smell, there was something else. Something sharp and chemical, like battery acid. Elena, we should be careful with that stuff. It might be dangerous. She nodded and sealed the bag, already thinking the same thing. My fingers are starting to tingle just from being near it. We moved away from the cow and continued looking around. That's when Elena found the tracks. Carlos. Over. Here! I hurried to where she was standing, about 20 feet from the dead cattle. She was pointing at the ground. In the hard-packed dirt there were tracks, but they weren't like any animal tracks I'd ever seen. They had 3 toes, each one ending in what looked like a sharp claw mark. The tracks were about the size of a large dog's paw, but the shape was all wrong. Have you ever seen tracks like this? Elena asked. I shook my head. In 15 years of desert work, I'd seen tracks from every animal that lived out here. Coyotes, foxes, javelinas, mountain lions, bears. These didn't match any of them. Look where they lead, I said. We followed the tracks across the hard ground. They went in a straight line toward a large rock formation about 30 yards away. But when we got to the rocks, the tracks just stopped. It was like whatever made them had just vanished into thin air. That's impossible, Elena said. Tracks don't just disappear. I looked up at the rocks. They were about 10 feet tall and smooth. Nothing could have climbed up them without leaving some kind of mark. And there were no tracks going around them either. Let's check the other side, I suggested. We walked around the rock formation, but there were no tracks on the other side. Whatever had made those prints had simply disappeared when it reached the rocks. Elena and I looked at each other. Neither of us said what we were both thinking, that this was impossible. Maybe the wind covered them up, she suggested, but she didn't sound like she believed it. There's been no wind strong enough to do that, I replied. We walked back toward our trucks, both of us quiet and thinking. As we got closer to the vehicles, Elena suddenly stopped. Do you hear that? She whispered. I listened carefully. At first, all I heard was the usual desert silence. Then I heard it too, a soft bleating sound like a goat in distress. It was coming from somewhere near the old ranch house. Sounds like it's coming from behind the house, I said. We walked quietly toward the sound. As we got closer, the bleating got louder and more frantic. It sounded like an animal in serious trouble. When we rounded the corner of the house, we saw a small goat tied to a post near what looked like an old tool shed. The goat was pulling against its rope, trying to get away from something. Its eyes were wide with fear. Poor thing, Elena said. It must belong to Tom. He probably forgot about it when he called us. But something about the scene bothered me. The goat wasn't just scared, it was terrified. And it kept looking toward the far end of the shed, like something was there that we couldn't see. Elena, stay back a minute, I said. I approached the goat slowly, talking to it in a calm voice. Animals usually responded well to me, but this goat wouldn't calm down. If anything, it seemed to get more scared as I got closer. That's when I noticed the metal tools scattered around the shed. Tom had left some old ranch equipment here. Shovels, picks, metal buckets, but something was wrong with them. Elena, look at these tools. She came over and examined them with me. The metal was corroded like acid had been poured on it, but the damage wasn't random. It was in perfect patterns like bite marks. This corrosion is fresh, Elena said, running her finger near one of the damaged spots. Maybe a day or two old at most. What kind of acid does this to metal? I asked. Nothing natural that I know of. While Elena examined the corroded tools, I checked my equipment. My motion detector, which I always carried for safety, started beeping. According to the readout, something was moving about 15 feet away from us. I looked in that direction but saw nothing, just empty desert and some scrub bushes. The detector beeped again. Now it showed movement 10 feet away, then 5 feet, then right next to us. Elena, I said quietly, we need to leave now. Why? What's wrong? Something's moving around us, but I can't see it. Elena looked around nervously. Carlos, are you sure your equipment is working right? Before I could answer, the goat's bleating suddenly stopped. Not gradually. It just cut off like someone had flipped a switch. We both looked at the goat. It was still alive, but now it was standing perfectly still, staring at something behind us. I turned around slowly. There was nothing there, but I could feel it. The sensation of being watched by something that didn't belong in this world. "We should go," Eleanor said, and I could hear the fear in her voice. We started walking back toward our trucks. The goat began bleating again, but now it sounded weak, like it was getting tired. When we reached our vehicles, Elena took out her thermometer to record the temperature for her report. She looked at it, frowned, and shook it. "That's weird," she said. "According to this, it's only 65 degrees out here." I looked at my own thermometer. It was reading normal, about 95 degrees. But when I reached out to touch Elena's hand, her skin felt ice cold, even though she was standing in the blazing desert sun. "Elena, are you feeling okay?" "I feel fine. Actually, I feel cold. Isn't that strange?" It was more than strange. It was impossible. But then again, everything about this day was impossible. We decided to head back to town and regroup. Elena wanted to get the green substance to her lab for testing, and I needed to file a report with the Park Service. But when we tried to start our trucks, mine wouldn't turn over. I tried again. Nothing. Not even a click from the starter. "Try yours," I told Elena. She turned her key. Her engine started, then immediately died. She tried again with the same result. I got out to check under the hood of my truck. Everything looked normal. Then I walked around to check the tires. All 4 tires had been slashed, but these weren't normal cuts. The slashes were too clean, too precise, and they went all the way through the thick rubber like whatever had made them was sharper than any knife. "Elena, check your tires." She got out and looked. Same thing, all 4 tires cut with surgical precision. "How is this possible?" she asked. "We were only away from the trucks for 20 minutes. I didn't have an answer. But I was starting to understand that we were dealing with something that didn't follow normal rules. The desert was completely quiet now. Even the goat had stopped bleating. The only sound was our own breathing and the distant flow of the Rio Grande. That's when I saw them. 2 glowing red dots, about 3 feet off the ground, watching us from about 50 yards away. They appeared for just a second, then vanished. My blood ran cold. I'd seen those same red eyes the night my partner died. "Eleanor," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I need you to stay very calm. We're not alone out here." Eleanor looked where I was pointing, but the red eyes had already disappeared. She squinted at the empty desert. "I don't see anything, Carlos." "What did you see?" "Red eyes. Glowing red eyes about 3 feet off the ground, just like Tom described." Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What do we do? Our trucks won't run." I thought quickly. We were 40 miles from the nearest help, with no working vehicles and no radio signal. The sun would be setting in. A few hours, and I didn't want to be out here in the dark. "The ranch house," I said. "We can use the old landline phone inside. And if that doesn't work, at least we'll have shelter." We gathered our gear and walked toward the house. The front door was unlocked. Nobody locked doors way out here. Inside, the house was dusty and hot, but it felt safer than being outside. Found the old rotary phone in the kitchen and picked it up. No dial tone. The line was dead. "Phone's out," I told Elena, "but we can stay here until morning, then walk out if we have to." Elena set her medical bag on the kitchen table. "Carlos, there's something I need to tell you. When I was collecting that green substance from the cow, some of it got on my glove. When I took the glove off later, there were burn marks on it, like acid burns." "Are you hurt?" "No, the glove protected me. But Carlos, whatever that stuff is, it's dangerous. And if an animal is producing it..." She didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. We weren't dealing with any normal animal. As the afternoon wore on, we searched the house for anything useful. In the basement, we found an old CB radio. It was dusty and hadn't been used in years, but when I plugged it in, it flickered to life. "Breaker, breaker, this is Park Ranger Carlos Vega at the old Martinez Ranch in Sector 7. Is anyone out there? Over." Static filled the radio for a few seconds. Then a voice came through, crackling and weak. "This is State Police Dispatch. Ranger Vega, we've been trying to reach you. Tom Martinez called us this morning. He said something. Attacked his truck last night. Are you all right? Over. We're okay for now, but our vehicles are disabled. We found the dead cattle," Tom reported. "Something's not right out here. Over." "Roger that, Ranger Vega. We'll send a unit out to you, but it'll be several hours. Can you hold your position?" "Over." "Affirmative. We're in the ranch house." "Over and out." I set down the radio and looked at Elena. "Help's coming, but not until tonight." She nodded, but I could see she was worried. So was I. Something had attacked Tom's truck. Now our trucks were disabled. Whatever was out there was smart enough to trap people. As evening approached, we made preparations for the night. I found some old lanterns and candles. Eleanor checked her medical supplies. We also found a toolbox in the basement with some useful items, wire, pliers, and some electrical equipment. That's when Elena made a discovery that changed everything. "Carlos, come look at this," she called from the living room. She was standing near the window, holding up a small device that looked like an electromagnetic field detector, the kind used by ghost hunters on TV shows. Tom must have been investigating this himself, she said. "Look at the reading." The device was going crazy, its needle jumping back and forth across the scale. The electromagnetic field in the house was all over the place. Remember how my thermometer gave strange readings near you? Elena asked. What if whatever we're dealing with affects electromagnetic fields? What do you mean? Think about it. Your motion detector saw something we couldn't see. My thermometer went haywire. Now this electromagnetic detector is going crazy. What if this creature can become invisible by bending light, but it can't hide its electromagnetic signature? It sounded crazy, but it was the first explanation that made any sense. As the sun started to set, I closed all the curtains and locked the doors. Elena set up the electromagnetic detector on the kitchen table where we could watch it. If something approaches the house, this should pick it up, she said. We ate some canned food we found in the kitchen pantry and waited. The house creaked and settled as the desert cooled down. Every sound made us jump. Around 9 o'clock, the electromagnetic detector started beeping rapidly. Something's coming, Elena whispered. I turned off the lantern so we couldn't be seen from outside. In the darkness, we watched the detector's needle dance wildly across the scale. Then we heard it, a sound like claws scratching against the metal roof of the house. Slow, deliberate scratches like something was walking around up there. It's on the roof, I whispered. The scratching moved from one end of the house to the other, then stopped. The electromagnetic detector went quiet. We sat in the dark, barely breathing, waiting for something to happen. That's when we heard the voice. It came from outside, near the front door. A man's voice, weak and frightened. Help me! Please, someone help me! I'm hurt! Elena started to get up, but I grabbed her arm. Wait, I whispered. Carlos, someone's hurt out there. We have to help. Listen carefully to the voice. We both listened. The voice came again. Please, I'm bleeding. I need help. Carlos, is that you? It's me, Roberto. My blood turned to ice. Roberto was my old Border Patrol partner, the one who had died 3 years ago with puncture wounds in his neck. Elena, don't move. Don't make a sound. Who's Roberto? She whispered. He's dead. He died 3 years ago. The voice came again, closer to the window now. Carlos, you let me bleed out in the desert. You left me to die. Now I'm so thirsty, Carlos, so very thirsty. Eleanor's hand found mine in the darkness. Her skin was ice cold again, through the thin curtains. We could see a shape moving outside the window, but it wasn't solid. It was like looking at heat waves, a distortion in the air. The electromagnetic detector started beeping again, faster than before. The shape moved away from the window and around toward the back of the house. We heard the scratching on the roof again, then silence. Carlos, Elena whispered so quietly I could barely hear her. Look at the detector. The needle was pointing straight up, completely off the scale. Whatever was outside wasn't just affecting electromagnetic fields, it was generating them. That's when the lights went out. Not just our lanterns, all the electrical equipment in the house went dead. The electromagnetic detector, the CB radio, everything. In the complete darkness, we heard the front door slowly creak open. I hadn't unlocked it. We'd made sure all the doors were locked and bolted. But somehow, something had gotten inside. We could hear it moving through the house, slow footsteps that didn't sound quite human. They were too light, too careful, like something trying to be quiet but not quite understanding how. Elena squeezed my hand. I could feel her trembling. The footsteps stopped right outside the kitchen door. In the darkness, 2 red eyes appeared, glowing softly about 3 feet off the ground. They looked directly at us, even though we were hidden behind the table. The creature spoke again in Roberto's voice. "Found you, Carlos. I've been so hungry, waiting for you to come back to the desert. You owe me blood, partner." That's when I realized we weren't just dealing with a strange animal. We were facing something that had been hunting me personally for 3 years. Something that had been waiting for me to return to the place where Roberto died. The red eyes moved closer, and in their glow I could finally see what we were up against. The creature was like nothing I'd ever seen. Its skin looked gray-green and scaly, but it seemed to shift and change, like it was partly there and partly not. It was about 4 feet tall, with long arms that dragged on the ground. Its spine had sharp ridges running down its back, like a reptile. But the worst part was its mouth. When it opened to speak in Roberto's voice, I could see rows of needle-sharp fangs, and its mouth opened far wider than seemed possible for its skull. "Elena," I whispered, "when I say run, we go for the basement. There's another way out down there." The creature tilted its head, like it was listening to us. Then it smiled, showing those terrible fangs. "You can't run from me, Carlos. I know this desert better than you do. I've been living here, feeding here, waiting here." The creature stepped into the kitchen, and I could smell something awful, like rotting meat mixed with battery acid. That's when Elena did something brave and stupid. She grabbed the CB radio and threw it as hard as she could at the creature. The radio passed right through it like the creature was made of smoke. But when it hit the wall behind the creature, there was a bright spark of electricity. The creature screamed, not in Roberto's voice, but in its own voice, high and alien and full of pain. For a second, its body became solid and real. "The basement! Now!" I shouted. We ran for the basement door, the creature's screams echoing behind us. We rushed down the basement stairs in complete darkness. Behind us, we could hear the creature moving around upstairs, making strange clicking sounds like it was trying to figure out where we'd gone. Elena grabbed my arm in the darkness. "Carlos, we need light. I can't see anything." I felt around until I found an old flashlight on the workbench. When I clicked it on, the weak beam showed us the basement. It was small, with concrete walls and an old furnace in the corner. "There," I said, pointing to a small door on the far wall. "That leads to the outside storm cellar entrance. We can get out that way." But as we moved toward the door, we heard heavy footsteps on the stairs. The creature had found us. Elena spotted something on the workbench. "Carlos, look at this." She picked up an old car battery and some jumper cables. "If electricity hurts it, maybe we can use this." That's when the creature appeared at the bottom of the stairs. In the flashlight beam, it looked even more horrible. Its skin seemed to move like it was barely holding together. Drool dripped from its fangs, and where the drool hit the floor, it sizzled like acid. "You can't hide from me," it said in Roberto's voice. "I can smell your blood. I can hear your heart beating." Elena was working fast, connecting the jumper cables to the battery. "Keep it talking," she whispered to me. "What do you want?" I asked the creature. "What I've always wanted." "Your blood, Carlos. You left Roberto to die, so now you get to join him." The The creature moved closer, and I could feel the cold radiating from it. My breath started to fog in the air. "I didn't leave him," I said. "I went for help." "Too late," the creature hissed. "Too slow. He bled out while you were gone. His blood tasted so sweet when I drank it." Elena finished connecting the cables. She held them apart, ready to touch them together. The creature took another step forward, and I could see its fangs extending from its mouth. They were like two large needles, hollow in the center. "Elena, now!" I shouted. She touched the cables together. Bright sparks flew, and the creature screamed again. For a moment, it became completely solid. I could see every detail of its gray-green skin, the ridges on its back, the alien intelligence in its red eyes, but the sparks only lasted a second. When they died, the creature became invisible again. Only its red eyes showed where it was. "That won't save you," it growled. "I'm done playing games." The creature lunged at me. I tried to dodge, but it was too fast. Its claws raked across my arm, tearing through my shirt. Where it touched me, my skin burned like fire. I fell backward onto the concrete floor. The creature stood over me, its fangs getting closer to my neck. That's when Elena did something amazing. She grabbed a metal rod from the workbench, an old rebar rod used for construction. She ran up behind the creature and drove the rod straight through its back. The creature froze. Black liquid that smelled like rotting eggs poured from the wound. It turned to look at Elena, its red eyes full of rage and pain. "You hurt me," it said, sounding surprised. "Nothing hurts me." The creature tried to move toward Elena, but something was wrong. Its legs wouldn't work right. The metal rod had hit something important in its spine, but then we heard something that made my blood run cold. From outside, we heard more of those alien screams. Not one voice, 3 or 4 different voices, all answering the wounded creature's call. "There are more of them," Elena said, backing toward me. The wounded creature smiled with its terrible mouth. "My family comes. They're hungry too." Through the small basement windows, we could see shapes moving outside. Red eyes glowing in the darkness. The pack had arrived. "The storm cellar door," I said. "It's our only chance." Elena helped me to my feet. My arm was bleeding where the creature had clawed me, but I could still move. We ran to the storm cellar door, but it was locked from the outside. "Stand back," I said. I kicked the door as hard as I could. The old wood cracked but didn't break. I kicked again, and it burst open. We climbed the concrete steps that led outside. Behind us, we could hear the wounded creature trying to follow, dragging itself across the floor. Outside, the night was full of red eyes. At least 3 more creatures circled the storm cellar entrance. They moved like shadows, there 1 second and gone the next. "The truck," Elena said. "If we can get to the truck, maybe we can fix it." We ran across the open ground toward our vehicles. The creatures followed, but they seemed to be playing with us, letting us run while they stayed just close enough to keep us scared. When we reached my truck, I popped the hood. In the darkness, it was hard to see what was wrong. Elena held the flashlight while I looked at the engine. "The electrical wires are cut," I said, "but maybe I can splice them together." While I worked on the wires, Elena kept watch. "Carlos, they're getting closer." I could see the red eyes moving in tighter circles around us. One of the creatures spoke, this time in Elena's voice. "Why are you running, Elena? We just want to taste you." "Don't listen to it," I told her. "Keep the lights steady." I managed to reconnect enough wires to try starting the truck. I turned the key. The engine coughed but didn't start. "Come on," I muttered, trying again. This time the engine turned over and caught. The headlights came on, flooding the area with a bright white light. The creatures scattered, their screams filling the night. The light seemed to hurt them, making it harder for them to stay invisible. "Get in!" I shouted. Elena jumped into the passenger seat. I put the truck in drive and stepped on the gas. We bounced across the rough ground, heading for the main road. In the rear-view mirror, I could see the creatures following us. They ran on all 4s like animals, but they moved faster than anything natural, even with the truck going 40 miles per hour. They were keeping up. Are they gaining on us? Elena asked. I don't think so, but we need to get to town fast. We reached the paved road, and I pushed the truck faster. The creatures followed for about a mile, then gave up. In the mirror, I saw their red eyes fade into the darkness. We drove in silence for a while. Both of us were shaking from fear and adrenaline. Carlos, Elena said finally, what were those things? I don't know. But I think they've been out there for a long time hunting. When we reached the town of Terlingua, we went straight to the police station. The state trooper who had radioed us was there waiting. We told him everything that had happened. He listened to our story without interrupting. When we finished, he was quiet for a moment. Folks, I've been a cop for 20 years. I've heard a lot of crazy stories, but Tom Martinez told me the same things you just did. And last month we found 2 missing hikers. They were drained of blood, with 2 holes in their necks. Elena gave the trooper the sample of green substance she'd collected. Have this tested, she said. Whatever it is, it's not from any animal we know. The trooper said he'd file a report, but I could tell he didn't believe us completely. He probably thought we'd been through something traumatic, and our minds were playing tricks on us. 3 days later, Elena called me with the test results. Carlos, that green substance isn't from any earth creature. The chemical makeup is like nothing we've ever seen. It's some kind of powerful acid mixed with an unknown protein. What does that mean? It means you and I are the only people who really know what's out there in the desert. I never went back to that part of Big Bend. The Park Service transferred me to a different section. Officially, the cattle deaths were blamed on an unknown predator, and the case was closed. But sometimes late at night I think about those red eyes in the darkness, and I wonder if they're still out there, waiting for the next person to wander too far into the desert. There's something else I haven't told Elena, something I haven't told anyone. The morning after our encounter, I woke up with a strange feeling, a thirst unlike anything I'd ever felt before. Not for water, not for any drink I could name. I looked in the mirror and saw 2 small marks on my neck, right where the creature had gotten close to me. They looked like pinprick wounds, almost healed. The thirst is still there, 3 months later. It gets stronger every day, especially when the moon is dark. I haven't told Elena because I'm afraid of what it might mean, but I think the creature marked me somehow. I think it left part of itself in me, and sometimes, late at night, when the thirst is really bad, I catch myself looking at people's necks and wondering what their blood might taste like. I'm fighting it so far, but I don't know how much longer I can resist. Maybe that's how it spreads. Maybe that's how there got to be a pack of them in the desert. Maybe Roberto isn't really dead. Maybe he's out there somewhere, living with the same terrible thirst that's growing inside me. I keep telling myself it's just my imagination, just trauma from what happened. But deep down, I know the truth. The chupacabra's thirst is becoming my thirst, and I'm afraid of what I might do when I finally can't fight it anymore. My name is David Grayson, and I should have listened to the signs that October evening in 1967. I was a park ranger at Point Pleasant Wildlife Management Area in West Virginia. 41 years old, with a bad leg from the war and too many memories I wished I could forget. That night started like any other, checking the old hunting blinds along the Ohio River before dark. The mist was rising from the water like ghost hands reaching up to the sky. I could hear the deep horns of the barges floating down the river, their sound echoing off the limestone cliffs that surrounded our little valley. It was peaceful. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. Rex, my German shepherd, walked beside me through the fallen leaves. They crunched under our feet with each step. Rex had been with me for 3 years now, ever since he retired from search and rescue work. He was getting old, gray around his muzzle, But he still had the best nose in the county. Suddenly every crow in the area took off at once. Must have been 100 of them, all cawing and screaming as they flew away from something. Their black wings looked like torn paper against the orange sky. Rex stopped walking and looked up, his ears standing straight. "What's got them spooked, boy?" I asked him, but he just whined softly. The sun was getting low, casting long shadows through the bare oak trees. October in West Virginia was always beautiful, but there was something different about this evening. The air felt thick, like before a storm, but there wasn't a cloud in the sky. Then I heard it, a humming sound. It was low and steady, like power. Lines after a rain, but we were miles from any power lines. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I pulled out my radio to check in with headquarters. Static filled the speaker, mixed with voices that sounded far away, too far away to be reaching us out here. I turned the volume up, trying to make out the words, but they faded in and out like they were coming from another world. "Base, this is Grayson. Radio check," I said into the speaker. Nothing but more static and those strange, distant voices. The temperature dropped suddenly. I could see my breath in little white puffs, even though it had been warm just minutes before. Rex started panting, his tongue hanging out, but I could see he was nervous. An owl called from somewhere in the trees, but it didn't sound right. The call was too deep, too long. In all my years in these woods, I'd never heard an owl make a sound like that. I looked around at the trail markers I'd placed myself just last month. They were all still there, but something was wrong. They looked like they'd been moved just a few inches. Not enough for most people to notice, but I knew these trails like my own backyard. Rex started pulling on his leash, trying to head back toward the truck. His hackles were up, the hair on his back standing straight up like when. He sensed danger, but I couldn't see anything wrong. "Easy, boy," I said, scratching behind his ears. "Just a few more blinds to check." But as we walked deeper into the woods, the feeling got stronger. Something was watching us. I'd felt that same feeling in Vietnam, right before an ambush. The air itself seemed to be holding its breath. The mist from the river was getting thicker, rolling through the trees like smoke. It moved in ways that didn't make sense, against the wind, in spiral patterns that hurt to look at. And then the silence hit us. Everything went quiet at once. No insects buzzing, no wind in the trees. Even the river seemed to stop flowing. It was like someone had turned off the sound of the whole world. Rex whimpered and pressed against my leg. His whole body was shaking. That's when I should have turned around. That's when I should have gotten back in my truck and driven straight home. But I didn't. I never did know when to quit. Instead, I kept walking deeper into the woods, toward the old TNT bunkers from World War II, toward whatever was waiting for us in the growing darkness. The last normal moments of my life were slipping away with the dying light. And I didn't even know it yet. I wasn't always a park ranger. Before this job, before the divorce, before everything fell apart, I was an army engineer in Vietnam. I built bridges. It sounds simple when you say it like that, but nothing about war is simple. The worst part wasn't the bombs or the bullets. It was watching the bridges I built get blown up a week later. All that work, all those hours in the mud and heat, gone in a flash of fire and smoke. Sometimes there were people on those bridges when they fell. That's why my ex-wife Sarah left me. She said I was obsessed with death and disasters, said I was like a dark cloud that followed trouble wherever I went. Maybe she was right. Maybe some people are just meant to see bad things coming. I pulled the small photo from my wallet, the one I always carried. My daughter Emma, smiling in her school picture. She was 8 years old now, living 2 states away with Sarah and her new husband. They didn't want me around much. Sarah said I gave Emma nightmares with my war stories, but I never told Emma about the war. I just got quiet sometimes when the memories hit. Kids notice things like that. Rex nudged my hand with his cold nose. He always knew when I was thinking about the bad times. That's why I loved him so much. He didn't ask questions, he just stayed close. "You're a good boy, Rex," I said, putting the photo back in my wallet. My leg was starting to hurt. It always did when a storm was coming, even though there were no clouds tonight. The shrapnel was still in there, too close to important things for the doctors to take out. 20 years later, and it still reminded me every day that some wounds never heal. But these woods helped. After Sarah left, after the lawyer visits and the custody talks, I found peace out here. The mountains didn't judge you. The trees didn't. Ask why you woke up screaming some nights. I'd been having strange dreams lately, always the same one. I was standing on a bridge, not one of my bridges from the war, but a big suspension bridge with lots of cars on it. People were shopping, carrying Christmas presents, laughing with their families. Then the bridge would start to shake. The cables would snap one by one like guitar strings breaking. People would scream, cars would slide into the river, and I'd wake up in a cold sweat, reaching for a phone to warn someone. But warn them about what? It was just a dream. Rex suddenly stopped walking. His ears shot up and he stared into the dark trees ahead of us. A low growl started deep in his throat. "What is it, boy?" That's when I heard the crying. A child's voice, sobbing somewhere in the woods ahead. It was faint but clear. A little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. But that was impossible. There were no houses for miles. No children lived anywhere near here. The closest neighbor was old Mr. Peters, and he lived alone. "Hello?" I called out. "Is someone there?" The crying stopped immediately. Complete silence again. Rex was pulling hard on his leash now, trying to drag me back toward the truck. His whole body was tense, ready to run. In all our years together, I'd never seen him this scared. I looked at my watch. The face was glowing in the dark, showing 7:30 p.m., but when I looked again a second later, it showed 8:15 p.m. Then 7:45 p.m. The numbers kept changing. "Must be broken," I muttered, tapping the glass. But deep down, I knew it wasn't broken. Just like I knew the crying wasn't from any real child. Just like I knew the humming sound wasn't from power lines. Something was very wrong in these woods tonight. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to leave. But I couldn't. Not yet. I'd spent my whole life running from things. From the war. From my marriage. From the responsibility of being a father. Tonight felt different. Tonight felt like something I couldn't run from, so I kept walking, even though Rex whined with every step, even though the air was getting colder and the shadows were getting longer, even though every smart part of my brain was telling me to turn around. I kept walking toward whatever was waiting for us in the darkness ahead. The trail ahead looked different somehow. I'd walked this path 100 times, but tonight the trees seemed closer together. The bushes looked thicker. Even the ground felt strange under my feet. Rex stopped completely. He sat down hard and refused to move, no matter how much I pulled. On his leash, his nose was twitching like crazy, picking up smells I couldn't detect. "Come on, boy. Just a little further." But he wouldn't budge. He just stared ahead and whined, a sad sound that made my chest feel tight. That's when I noticed the silence again. Not just quiet, complete silence. No wind, no insects buzzing, no leaves rustling. Even my own breathing sounded too loud. I walked a few steps forward, leaving Rex behind for a moment. There was a big sycamore tree up ahead, one I'd seen countless times. But now it had deep scratches in its bark. Fresh scratches like claw. Marks, I touched them with my fingers. They were cut deep into the wood, about 10 feet up the trunk. What kind of animal could reach that high? And what had claws this big? Each mark was as wide as my thumb. A smell hit me then, sharp and wrong, like rotten eggs mixed with the smell after lightning strikes. It made my eyes water and my stomach turn. I heard something crunch in the leaves behind me and spun around. Rex was still sitting where I'd left him, but between us lay a hunting rifle, just lying there on the trail like someone had dropped it. I picked it up carefully. It was loaded. The safety was off, ready to fire. But where was the hunter? Nobody just leaves a loaded gun in the woods. That was the first rule of hunting. Never leave your weapon behind. Hello? I called out. Did someone drop this? My voice echoed off the trees, but no one answered. I looked down at my compass to check which direction we were heading. The needle was spinning like crazy, turning round and round without stopping. It couldn't find north. It couldn't find anything. Then it stopped. The needle pointed straight ahead toward the old World War II bunkers where they used to store TNT. Those concrete buildings had been empty for 20 years. Nobody went there anymore, but according to my compass, that's exactly where we needed to go. I walked back to Rex and knelt down beside him. His whole body was shaking now, and when I touched his head, I could feel his heart beating fast, like a bird's. It's okay, boy. We'll just check out the bunkers and then head home, I promise. But Rex wouldn't look at me. He kept staring into the woods with his ears flat against his head, the way dogs do when they hear thunder coming. I tried my radio again. Base, this is Grayson. Come in. Static filled the speaker, but this time I could hear voices in it, whispers too low to understand. They sounded urgent, like they were trying to warn me about something. Base, can you hear me? The whispers got louder. I turned up the volume, trying to make out the words. It sounded like stay away and don't go and too late. Then the radio went dead, completely silent. I looked around. The fog was getting thicker, rolling between the trees like smoke from a campfire. But it was moving wrong, against the wind in spirals that didn't make sense. And the temperature kept dropping. I could see every breath now, little white clouds in the cold air. My hands were getting numb even though I had gloves on. Rex suddenly jumped up. Something had spooked him bad. He started barking, not his normal bark, but a high, scared sound I'd never heard before. That's when I saw them. Dead fish floating in the river. Dozens of them, all belly up with their white eyes staring at nothing. Fish don't just die like that for no reason. The water itself looked wrong too. Dark red in some spots, like someone had poured paint in it. What the hell? I whispered. Rex's barking turned into howls, long, mournful sounds that made my skin crawl. He was pulling so hard, on his leash, that I was afraid he'd hurt himself. I looked at my watch again. This time all three hands were moving at different speeds. The second hand was going backwards. The minute hand was spinning fast. The hour hand was stuck on midnight. My teeth started to ache, a deep, bone-deep pain, like when you bite down on ice. The air itself felt electric, like before a big storm. Then I heard footsteps, slow, heavy steps coming through the leaves, getting closer. But when I looked, there was nobody there. The footsteps stopped right in front of me. I could see the leaves pressed down where something heavy was standing. But nothing was there. Rex was going crazy now, barking and howling and trying to run. The fur on his back was standing straight up, making him look twice as big as normal. Who's... And there, I shouted, show yourself. The only answer was a sound I'll never forget, like leather flapping in the wind, like giant wings. But there was nothing in the sky, nothing I could see. That's when I knew for sure we weren't alone in these woods. Something was watching us, something big, something that didn't want us here, and we were walking straight toward it. I forced myself to keep walking. Rex followed behind me now, staying close to my legs but still shaking. Every few steps he'd look over his shoulder like something was following us. The old bunkers came into view through the fog. Grey concrete buildings covered in moss and vines. They'd been built during World War II to store explosives. Now they were just empty shells, dark windows staring out like dead eyes. That's when I saw the shadow. It was huge, much bigger than any bird I'd ever seen. It passed over the moon, blocking out the light for a moment. But when I looked up, the sky was empty. I stopped walking and listened. Nothing. Then a sound like leather being dragged across concrete, coming from the nearest bunker. Hello? I called out. Is someone in there? The sound stopped. I pulled out my flashlight and turned it on. The beam cut through the fog, lighting up the bunker entrance. The big steel door was hanging open, creaking slightly in the wind. Rex whined and pressed against my leg. I reached down and unclipped his leash. If something bad happened, I wanted him to be able to run. Stay close, boy. I walked toward the bunker, my footsteps echoing off the concrete. The place smelled like old rain and rust, and something else, something animal-like. I stepped through the doorway and shined my light around. The bunker was empty except for some old crates and puddles of water. Nothing dangerous. Then I heard breathing. Deep, slow breaths. Too slow for a person, too big for any animal I knew. I turned around fast, my light sweeping across the back wall of the bunker. 2 eyes looked back at me. Red eyes, glowing like hot coals in the darkness. They were huge, each one the size of a dinner plate. And they were looking right at me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The eyes were so bright they hurt to look at, but I couldn't look away. Slowly, a shape began to form around the eyes. Tall, at least 7 feet. Shaped like a person, but wrong somehow. Too thin, too long. Wings, giant wings spread out from its back. They must have been 12 feet across, maybe more. When they moved, they made that leather sound I'd heard before. It stepped forward into my flashlight beam. Grey skin, no hair, a body like a man but stretched out, like someone had pulled it too long. And those eyes, those terrible red eyes that seemed to see right through me. David, it said. My blood turned to ice. It knew my name. But worse than that, it spoke in my brother's voice. My brother Tommy, who died in a car crash when we were kids. David, it said again, the bridge will fall. I tried to speak, but no words came out. My mouth was too dry. What bridge? I finally managed to whisper. Images flashed in my mind. Not my thoughts. Something else was putting them there. I saw the silver bridge that connected Point Pleasant to Ohio. I saw it packed with cars, Christmas shoppers heading home with their families. Then I saw it collapse. The cables snapped one by one. Cars fell into the dark water. People screamed. The bridge twisted and buckled and came apart like a toy. When? I asked. The creature stepped closer. Its feet made no sound on the concrete floor. Soon, it said in Tommy's voice. Very soon. Rex was barking somewhere behind me, but the sound seemed far away. Everything seemed far away except those red eyes. Why are you telling me this? The creature tilted its head, like it was thinking. Its neck was too long, bending in ways that necks shouldn't bend. Because you can see, it said. Because you understand. Loss. Because bridges are important to you. It was right. Bridges had always been important to me. Building them in the war. Watching them fall. And now, how do I stop it? The creature's wings rustled. It took another step forward, and I could smell it now, like metal and rain, and something else I couldn't identify. You cannot stop it. You can only warn them. Warn who? But the creature was already backing away, fading into the shadows. Wait, I shouted. Tell me more! Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere, like an echo in a cave. Tomorrow night, when the Christmas lights are bright, when families are crossing home. The red eyes blinked once. Then they were gone. I stood, there alone in the bunker, my flashlight shaking in my hands. Rex was barking outside, frantic and scared. I ran out of the bunker and scooped him up. He was trembling all over, his fur damp with sweat. Or maybe that was my sweat. I couldn't tell. My watch was working again. It showed 11:30 p.m. Had I been in there that long? The fog was lifting. The temperature was normal. The strange humming sound was gone. Everything was back to normal. Everything except the images burned into my brain. The bridge falling, people dying. Tomorrow night. I had less than 24 hours to figure out what to do. And somehow I knew. The creature would be watching to see if I tried. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my kitchen with Rex at my feet, staring at the phone. Who was I supposed to call? The police? The bridge authority? What was I supposed to say? A giant birdman told me the silver bridge is going to collapse. They'd think I was crazy. Hell, maybe I was crazy, but the images wouldn't leave my head. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw cars falling into the dark water, heard people screaming, saw Christmas presents floating in the river. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I had to try. I called the Point Pleasant Police Department first. "Hello, this is Officer Martinez. How can I help you?" "This is David Grayson. I'm a park ranger. I need to speak to someone about the Silver Bridge." "What about it?" "I have reason to believe it might be in danger. Someone should check it for structural problems." There was a pause. "Sir, has there been an accident?" "Not yet, but there might be." "I'm sorry, Mr. Grayson. We can't close a bridge based on a hunch. Do you have specific evidence of damage?" I wanted to tell her everything. About the creature, the vision, the warning. But I knew how it would sound. Just please have someone look at it. She promised to pass along my concerns, but I could hear in her voice that nothing would happen. I tried the bridge authority next, then the county emergency services, then the state highway department. Same response everywhere. They needed proof, evidence, something real. The day crawled by. I couldn't eat, couldn't concentrate. I kept checking my watch, counting down the hours. Rex stayed close to me all day. He could sense something was wrong. Every now and then he'd look toward the window and whine like he was listening for something I couldn't hear. As evening approached, I made one last phone call to my ex-wife, Sarah. "David, why are you calling? Is everything okay?" "Sarah, listen to me. Don't go near the Silver Bridge tonight. Keep Emma away from it too." "What are you talking about?" "Just promise me, stay away from the bridge." "David, you're scaring me. Have you been drinking?" "I'm not drunk, Sarah. I'm trying to save your life." She hung up. At 7:30 p.m. I got in my truck. Rex jumped in beside me without being asked. We drove toward Point Pleasant, toward the Silver Bridge. The December air was cold and crisp. Christmas lights twinkled in house windows. Families were finishing dinner, getting ready for evening plans. Normal people living normal lives. The bridge came into view as we crested the hill. It was beautiful at night, strung with lights that reflected in the dark water below. Cars moved steadily across it in both directions, holiday shoppers heading home. I parked near the bridge entrance and got out. A few people looked at me strangely. A man in a park ranger uniform standing by, his truck with a German shepherd staring at the bridge. My radio crackled to life. For the first time in 2 days, it was working clearly. "All units, be advised. Possible structural issue with Silver Bridge. Request immediate evacuation." I grabbed the radio. "Who is this?" "This is Ranger Grayson." "Sir, we're getting reports of unusual stress readings on the bridge cables. We need to clear the area immediately." I looked around, confused. I hadn't seen any emergency vehicles, no crew checking the bridge. But my radio was definitely working, and the voice sounded official. Then I saw him, a man in a dark coat standing near the bridge toll booth. He was waving cars away, telling them to take another route. Some listened. Others ignored him and drove onto the bridge anyway. I ran toward him, but when I got close, he was gone, vanished like smoke. That's when I understood. The creature wasn't just warning me, it was helping, trying to save as many people as possible. Started waving my arms at the cars approaching the bridge. "Turn around," I shouted. "Use the other bridge. This one isn't safe." Some drivers slowed down. A few actually turned around, but most just drove past me, thinking I was some crazy man, making a scene. A police car pulled up beside me. Officer Martinez, the same woman I'd talked to on the phone. "Mr. Grayson, so what are you doing here?" "The bridge," I said. "You have to close it now." She looked at the bridge, then back at me. "Sir, I need you to calm down. You're creating a disturbance." "Check your radio," I said. "Haven't you gotten calls about structural problems?" She looked confused. "No, sir, no calls about the bridge." That's when I realized I was the only one hearing those radio messages. Somehow the creature was speaking directly to me. I looked at my watch. 11:45 p.m. "Please," I begged her. "Just close it for 15 minutes, that's all I'm asking." She was about to answer when we heard it, a sound like a guitar string snapping, but huge, massive. We both looked up at the bridge. One of the main cables had broken. It hung loose, swaying in the wind. "Oh my God," Officer Martinez whispered. Cars on the bridge started honking as the deck began to sway. People were getting out of their vehicles, looking around in panic. "Radio for backup," I shouted, running toward the bridge. "Get everyone off now." I made it about halfway across when the second cable snapped. The bridge deck tilted. Cars slid toward the edge. People screamed. I grabbed a little girl who'd fallen out of her parents' car and pushed her toward her mother. "Run!" I yelled. "Everyone, run!" Most people made it off before the bridge collapsed completely, but not all of them. I watched from the riverbank as the silver bridge twisted and fell into the dark water. The sound was terrible. Metal screaming, concrete crumbling, people crying. 37 people died that night. December 15th, 1967. It made national news. I saved maybe a dozen people, maybe more. I'll never know for sure. The official report blamed metal fatigue in the bridge cables. 40 years of wear and tear, they said. A tragic accident. Only I knew the truth. The creature had tried to warn everyone, not just me. But people don't listen to warnings about impossible things. 3 months later, I woke up in the middle of the night. Rex was sitting by my bedroom window, staring out into the darkness. I looked where he was looking and saw them again. Those red eyes, watching from the tree line. I got up and walked to the window. The creature was standing at the edge of my yard. Its massive wings folded against its back. It spoke without speaking, the words appearing in my mind like they had before. "There will be more," it said. "Other disasters, other warnings. Are you ready?" I looked at Rex, then back at the creature. "I'm ready," I whispered. The red eyes blinked once and disappeared. That was 40 years ago. Since then, I've had more dreams, more visions. I've tried to warn people about floods, earthquakes, building collapses. Sometimes they listen. Usually they don't. The people in Point Pleasant call me the Mothman's prophet now. Some think I'm crazy. Others think I'm blessed. I don't know what I am. All I know is that sometimes, when something terrible is about to happen, I see those red eyes again. And I remember that night by the river when a creature chose me to carry its burden. The burden of knowing what's coming. The burden of trying to save people who don't want to be saved. Rex died 5 years ago. Old age. But sometimes I still feel him beside me when I see those warning signs. Still hear his whine when danger is near. And sometimes on foggy nights like that October evening so long ago, I wonder if the creature is still out there. Still watching. Still warning. Still waiting for someone to listen. My name is Thomas Kane, and I need to tell you about what happened to me in the fall of 1974. I was 28 years old then, working as a park ranger in the Mount Washington National Forest in New Hampshire. Most people think being a ranger is peaceful work, just walking through pretty forests and helping lost hikers. They're wrong. I wasn't always a ranger. Before this job, I was in the Coast Guard, flying helicopters to save people from stormy seas. That was until my helicopter went down during a rescue mission. 3 sailors died that day because I couldn't get to them fast enough. The doctors said my back was too messed up to fly anymore, so they sent me home with a medical discharge and a head full of nightmares. That's how I ended up in these mountains. My ex-wife Sarah used to say, I came here to hide from the world. Maybe she was right. She left me 6 months before this story happened, said she couldn't handle my bad dreams and the way I'd wake up screaming in the middle of the night. I don't. And blame her. It was October 15th, 1974. President Nixon was all over the news and gas prices were going crazy because of some crisis overseas. But up in my fire tower, none of that mattered. All that mattered was keeping people safe in these woods. I woke up before dawn that morning, like I always did. The air was cold and sharp. The the kind that bites your nose when you breathe. Golden, leaves were falling everywhere, spinning down through the misty pine trees like copper coins. I made coffee in my little camp stove and climbed up to the fire tower to watch the sunrise. The view from up there was something else. Miles and miles of forest stretching out like a green and yellow carpet. In the distance, the mountains looked purple in the early light. A hawk was crying somewhere far off, and I could hear a creek babbling down in the valley. Everything seemed perfect and peaceful. That's when the radio crackled to life. "Tower 7, this is base." "Come in, Kane." I grabbed the radio. "This is..." "Kane, go ahead, base. We got a report about a missing hunting party. 5 men been gone 3 days now. Last seen heading into your sector." My coffee suddenly tasted bitter. 3 days? Why didn't anyone report it sooner? Family thought they were just staying longer than planned, but they were supposed to check in yesterday. These aren't weekend warriors, Kane. They're experienced guys who know these woods. I looked out at the forest again. It didn't seem so peaceful anymore. "I'll head out and look for them. Send me their last known location." "Will do." "And Kane, be careful out there. Weather Service says a big fog bank is moving in from the north. Could get thick fast." After I signed off, I climbed down from the tower and loaded my pickup truck. I grabbed my 30-6 rifle, my medical kit, emergency flares, and extra batteries for my radio. I also took my grandfather's old compass. He was a navigator in World War II, and that compass had gotten him through some bad times in the Pacific. I always carried it with me, like a good luck charm. As I drove toward the search area, I noticed the forest was getting quieter. Usually I'd see squirrels running around, birds flying between the trees, maybe a deer or two. But this morning, it was like all the animals had decided to stay hidden. The temperature was dropping faster than the weatherman had said it would. My breath was making little clouds even inside the truck. And sure enough, I could see a wall, a fog rolling in from the north, thick and grey like smoke. I had to take the old logging roads because of a rock slide that had blocked the main trail last week. These roads were narrow and bumpy, winding through the deepest parts of the forest where the trees grew so close together they blocked out most of the light. That's when I first felt it, that feeling like someone was watching me. You know the feeling, right? Like eyes on the back of your neck? I kept checking my mirrors, but there was nothing there. Just trees and shadows. I told myself I was being stupid. Maybe Sarah was right about me being too jumpy since the accident. Maybe I really was hiding from the world up here, but then something happened that I'll never forget. All the sounds just stopped. The engine of my truck, the wind in the trees, even the sound of my own breathing, everything went completely silent. It was like someone had turned off the volume on the whole world. I stopped the truck and got out. I could hear my heart beating in my ears, but nothing else. No birds, no insects, no wind, nothing. The silence was so thick it felt like it was pressing down on me. I stood there for maybe a minute listening to nothing, and that's when I knew something was very wrong in these woods. Something was waiting for me up ahead, something that didn't belong here. I got back in the truck and kept driving, but the feeling of being watched never went away. My grandfather's compass was sitting on the dashboard, and I swear it was shaking. Just a little bit, like something was pulling at it. I should have turned around right then. I should have driven back to the tower and called for backup, but I couldn't. 5 men were missing, and they might need help. I was trained to save people. That's what I did. That's who I was. So I kept driving deeper into the forest, toward whatever was waiting for me in the silence. 20 minutes later, I found their camp, or what was left of it. I smelled it before I saw it, a sweet, sick smell mixed with something metallic, like old pennies left out in the rain. I parked the truck and grabbed my rifle. The fog was getting thicker now, making everything look gray and fuzzy. The campsite was in a small clearing next to a stream. At first glance, it looked normal enough. 3 tents, a fire pit with cold, ashes, some camping chairs scattered around. But something was wrong with the picture, very wrong. All 3 tents were ripped up, not cut with a knife, ripped. Long tears in the fabric that started low and went up high, like something with claws, had slashed them from the inside. The sleeping bags were pulled out and thrown around the campsite. Most of them had dark stains on them that looked black in the grey light. I called out, "Hello! Anyone here? This is Park Ranger Kane." My voice echoed off the trees and came back, sounding strange and hollow. No answer. I walked closer to the tents, my rifle ready. The first tent was a mess inside, clothes everywhere, camping gear scattered like someone had been searching for something in a big hurry, or fighting for their life. The second tent was worse. The sleeping bag inside was soaked with something dark and sticky. There were scratch marks on the tent floor, deep gouges that went right through the plastic bottom and into the dirt below. I took pictures with my camera, trying to stay calm and professional like they taught us in training. But my hands were shaking. Near the fire pit, I found their rifles, 3 of them, just lying on the ground with ammunition scattered around them like confetti. These men were experienced hunters. They wouldn't leave their guns behind unless something really bad had happened. That's when I saw the drag marks. They started near the biggest tent and went uphill into the thick trees. But here's the weird part. There were no human footprints anywhere, just these deep furrows in the dirt, like something heavy had been dragged, but no footprints from whatever did the dragging. I followed the marks for about 50 feet into the forest. They led to a tree that had scratches on it about 8 feet up from the ground. Deep scratches, like claw marks, but bigger than any bear I'd ever seen. Under the tree, I found something that made my stomach flip over. Teeth, human teeth, just scattered on the ground like someone had spilled a bag of white beans. Some of them still had blood on them. I threw up right there. I couldn't help it. I'd seen some bad things in the Coast Guard, but never anything like this. When I was done being sick, I tried to radio back to base, but all I got was static. Loud, scratchy static with something underneath it that sounded almost like whispering. I tried different channels, adjusted the antenna, even smacked the radio a few times. Nothing but static and whispers. That's when I heard the howl. It started low and far away, like a wolf calling to its pack. But as it went on, it got higher and louder, and it started to sound wrong. Not like any animal I'd ever heard. It had something human in it, like someone screaming with their mouth full. The howl seemed to come from everywhere at once, ahead of me, behind me, from both sides. How was that possible? I grabbed my compass to get my bearings, but when I looked at it, the needle was spinning around and around like a washing machine. It wouldn't point north anymore. It just kept spinning faster and faster. The fog was getting thicker now, so thick I could barely see the trees around me. The air felt heavy and cold, like it was pressing down on me. And that smell, that sweet, sick smell, was getting stronger. I decided to get back to my truck and get out of there. I could come back with more men, better equipment, maybe some dogs to track whatever had taken those hunters. But when I turned around, I couldn't see the campsite anymore. Everything looked the same in the fog. Just grey trees and grey shadows. I started walking in what I thought was the right direction, but after 5 minutes, I still hadn't found the clearing. The trees all looked exactly the same. Had I gotten turned around? That didn't make sense. I knew these woods like my own backyard. Then I heard something that made my blood freeze, a voice calling my name. Thomas Kane. It was a woman's. Voice soft and sad. It sounded like Sarah, my ex-wife. "Thomas, I'm lost. Please help me." I stopped walking. Sarah was 200 miles away in Boston. There was no way she could be here, but it sure sounded like her voice. "Thomas, please, I'm hurt and I can't find my way out." The voice was coming from deeper in the forest, up the hill where the drag marks had led. Every part of my brain was screaming at me not to follow it. But what if it really was someone who needed help? What if one of the hunters' wives had come looking for them? I took a step toward the voice, then another. My grandfather's compass was still spinning wildly in my hand. "That's right, Thomas, come find me. I need you." Something about the way it said "need" made my skin crawl. The words stretched out too long, like a snake hissing. I stopped walking and raised my rifle. "I'm armed," I shouted. "Show yourself." The voice laughed. It started out sounding like Sarah's laugh, but halfway through it changed into something else, something that no human throat could make. That's when I ran. I turned around and ran as fast as I could through the fog, branches whipping at my face, roots trying to trip me. I didn't care which direction I was going anymore. I just wanted to get away from that laugh. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs felt like rubber. When I finally stopped, I was gasping and sweating despite the cold. I looked around, trying to figure out where I was. And there, through the fog, I could see my truck. I was back at the campsite exactly where I'd started. Like I'd been running in a big circle. I stood there staring at my truck, trying to make sense of what just happened. I was good with directions. You had to be in the Coast Guard. But somehow I'd run straight back to where I started. That wasn't possible. I walked over to my truck, keeping my rifle ready. Something crunched under my feet. I looked down and saw broken glass scattered on the ground. My truck's windshield had a spider web crack right in the middle, like something had hit it hard. But I hadn't heard anything break while I was running. I got closer and saw something that made my heart skip. There were scratches on the hood of my truck, 5 long scratches that went from the windshield all the way to the front bumper. They were deep. I could see the metal underneath the paint. Those scratches weren't there when I parked. I checked. My keys, still in my pocket. I looked around the campsite again. Everything was exactly the same as when I'd left it. Same torn tents, same scattered gear, same smell hanging in the air. But now there were footprints in the dirt near my truck. Big footprints, way bigger than mine. And they weren't from boots or shoes. They looked wrong, like someone had tried to make human footprints but didn't know how feet were supposed to work. I backed away from the truck, and that's when I saw something was standing between the trees about 50 yards away. At first I thought it was a person, tall and thin, standing perfectly still. Maybe one of the missing hunters. "Hey!" I called out. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" The figure didn't move, didn't answer, just stood there like a statue. I started walking toward it, my rifle up and ready. "I'm a park ranger. I'm here to help." As I got closer, I could see it better through the fog. It was definitely tall, maybe 7 or 8 feet. But something was wrong with the shape. Too thin, like it had been stretched out. And it was so pale, it almost seemed to glow in the gray light. When I was about 20 feet away, it moved, not like a person moves. It turned its head toward me, but the head kept turning, way further than any human head should be able to turn, like an owl. And that's when I saw its face. It wasn't a face at all, just skin stretched tight over a skull with empty black holes, where the eyes should be. No nose, just 2 slits, and a mouth that was too wide, filled with teeth that were too sharp and too many. I stopped walking. My whole body went cold, like someone had dumped ice water over me. The thing tilted its head to the side, still staring at me with those empty eye holes. Then it smiled. That horrible wide mouth stretched even wider, showing rows and rows of yellow teeth. "Hello, Thomas," it said, in a voice like Sarah's, but wrong, like someone playing a recording that was running too slow. "I've been waiting for you." I raised my rifle and fired. The shot echoed through the forest like thunder. The bullet went right through it, didn't even slow it down, just passed through like it was made of smoke. The thing laughed, that same laugh I'd heard before, starting human and turning into something else. Something that made my teeth hurt. I fired again. Same thing. The bullet just went through it and hit a tree behind it. "You can't hurt me with that toy," it said, and now it sounded like my own voice talking back to me. "But I can hurt you." It started walking toward me, but its feet didn't touch the ground. It was floating, just drifting forward like a bad dream. I ran again. This time, I didn't care about direction or getting lost. I just ran as fast as I could in the opposite direction. Behind me, I could hear it laughing and calling my name in. Different voices. Sarah, my mother, even my own voice calling out to myself. I ran through the thick forest, jumping over fallen logs, pushing through bushes that grabbed at my clothes. My lungs were burning and my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. Then I tripped. My foot caught on something and I went down hard, rolling down a small hill and hitting a tree at the bottom. My rifle went flying and landed somewhere, in the bushes. I lay there for a minute trying to catch my breath. My whole body hurt, especially my left shoulder where I'd hit the tree. I could taste blood in my mouth. That's when I realized how quiet it was. Again, no wind, no birds, no sounds at all except my own breathing. I sat up and looked around. I was in a different part of the forest now, somewhere I didn't recognize. The trees were older here, bigger, with thick trunks and branches that blocked out most of the light. Even the fog seemed thicker. I found my rifle in a pile of dead leaves and checked to make sure it still worked. Not that it had helped me before, but holding it made me feel a little better. I started walking, trying to find my way back to the campsite. But after 10 minutes, I realized I was walking in circles again. I kept seeing the same rock, the same fallen tree, the same twisted branch that looked like a pointing finger. That's when I heard the voices. Multiple voices this time, all calling my name from different directions. Some sounded like people I knew, others like strangers, men, women, even children. "Thomas, help us. Thomas, we're hurt. Thomas, don't leave us here." I spun around trying to figure out where they were coming from, but I couldn't see anyone. Just trees and fog and shadows. "Thomas, it's Sarah. Please come find me. I'm scared." That one came from right behind me. I turned around and there it was again, that thing. But now it looked different. Now it looked like Sarah. Same blonde hair, same blue eyes, same worried expression she used to get when I had nightmares. But something was wrong with her face. It was too pale, and when she moved, it was like watching someone else wearing Sarah's skin like a mask. "Thomas, why did you leave me? I came all this way to find you." I wanted to run again, but my legs felt like they were made of lead. I couldn't move, couldn't look away. "Don't you miss me?" it asked, taking a step closer. "Don't you want to hold me again?" Its voice was perfect now, exactly like Sarah's voice. If I closed my eyes, I could pretend it really was her. "I know you've been lonely up here," it said, reaching out toward me. "I know you blame yourself for what happened to those men in the helicopter, but it wasn't your fault, Thomas. Come to me and I'll make the pain go away." Part of me wanted to believe it. Part of me wanted to walk over and let it hold me and tell me everything would be okay, but I could smell that sweet, sick smell getting stronger as it got closer. "You're not Sarah," I said, my voice shaking. "Sarah's in Boston. She left me." The thing that looked like Sarah smiled, but the smile was wrong. Too wide, too many teeth. "You're right," it said, and now its voice was changing again, getting deeper and rougher. "I'm not Sarah. I'm something much better." Its face started to change. The skin rippled like water, and underneath I could see something else pushing through. Something with gray skin and yellow eyes, and a mouth full of broken glass. "I'm what you've been waiting for your whole life, Thomas. I'm the thing that's going to set you free." I finally found my legs again and started backing away. But everywhere I stepped, the ground felt soft and squishy, like walking on wet sponges. "You can't run forever," it called after me. "These are my woods now. I know every tree, every path, every hiding place. And I know you, Thomas Kane. I know all about your guilt and your pain and your need to save people." I kept backing away until I hit something solid. Another tree. I was trapped. The thing was getting closer, changing as it moved. Sometimes it looked like Sarah, sometimes like the gray creature I'd seen before, sometimes like people I didn't recognize, like it was trying on different faces to see which one scared me the most. "Do you want to know what happened to those hunters?" it asked. "Do you want to know how they screamed when I found them?" I raised my rifle. even though I knew it wouldn't. Help! They tasted so good, it whispered now just a few feet away, but I saved room for dessert. That's when I noticed something. My grandfather's compass. It was still in my hand, and it had stopped spinning. The needle was pointing steadily, in one direction, not north, but toward a cluster of old trees that looked different from the rest. Without thinking, I ran in that direction. The thing behind me let out a shriek of anger that sounded like a dozen voices screaming at once. I ran toward those old trees, branches tearing at my clothes, the compass needle pointing the way like it was pulling me forward. Behind me, I could hear crashing and snapping as something big chased me through the forest. I didn't look back. I just ran toward whatever my grandfather's compass was pointing to, hoping it would lead me to safety, or at least somewhere I could make my last stand. I ran for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. My legs were shaking and my chest burned with every breath. The compass needle never wavered. It kept pointing straight ahead, like it knew exactly where I needed to go. Finally, I had to stop. I leaned against a big oak tree and tried to catch my breath. The forest around me was different here. The trees were older, thicker. Some of them had strange marks carved into their bark, symbols I didn't recognize. They looked old, really old, like they'd been there for years. I listened carefully. No crashing sounds behind me anymore. No voices calling my name. Just that thick, heavy silence that made my ears ring, but I could feel it watching me. That thing, I couldn't see it, but I knew it was out there somewhere, waiting. I checked my rifle. Still had 3 bullets left. Not that they'd done me any good before, but they made me feel a little less helpless. That's when I started to think about what was really happening here. 5 experienced hunters had come into these woods and disappeared. Now some kind of creature was hunting me the same way. It was smart. Smart enough to talk, to change its shape, to trick me with voices I knew, and it was playing with me. It could have caught me already if it wanted to. It moved faster than any human, and bullets didn't hurt it. So why was I still alive? Why was it letting me run? Because it was having fun. The thought made my skin crawl. This thing was hunting me like a cat hunts a mouse, not because it was hungry, but because it enjoyed the chase. I started moving again, slower this time, trying to stay quiet. Every few steps, I checked the compass. It was still pointing in the same direction, toward something I couldn't see yet. The fog was getting thicker as I walked. Soon I could barely see 10 feet in front of me. The trees looked like gray ghosts in the mist. Everything was damp and cold, and that sweet, sick smell was everywhere now. Then I heard something that made me freeze. Footsteps. Not the sound of something crashing through the forest like before. These were quiet, careful footsteps, like someone trying not to be heard. But they were too heavy to be human footsteps, and they had a weird rhythm. Step, step, drag. Step, step, drag. The footsteps were getting closer. I pressed myself against a tree and held my breath. The bark felt rough and cold against my back. I could hear my heart beating so loud I was sure it would give me away. Step, step, drag, step, step, drag. It was circling me, moving around the tree I was hiding behind. I couldn't see it through the fog, but I could hear it getting closer. I waited until the footsteps were on the other side of the tree. Then I ran. I didn't try to be quiet anymore. I just ran as fast as I could through the fog. Behind me, I heard a sound like laughter, mixed with a dog's howl. Then the footsteps started again, faster now. It was coming after me. I ran through the grey forest, jumping over fallen logs, pushing through bushes. The compass in my hand kept pointing forward, and I followed it like my life depended on it, which it probably did. The footsteps behind me were getting closer. Step, step, drag, step, step, drag, faster and faster. I could hear breathing too, heavy, wet breathing like something with too much spit in its mouth. I risked to look back and saw a shadow moving through the fog. It was big and moved in a way that hurt my eyes to watch, like it had too many joints. In the wrong places. Just when I thought it was going to catch me, I broke through a line of trees and found myself in another clearing. But this one was different from the campsite. This one had been here for a very long time. There were stones arranged in a circle, big old stones covered with moss and the same strange symbols I'd seen carved in the trees. In the center of the circle was a pile of rocks that looked like it. Might have been an altar or something like that. The compass needle was pointing right at the stone circle. I stumbled into the middle of the circle and turned around. The footsteps had stopped. Everything was quiet again. I waited, holding my rifle ready, watching the edge of the clearing through the fog. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. Minutes passed. My hands were starting to cramp from gripping the rifle so tight, but I didn't dare relax. Then I saw it. It was standing just outside the ring of stones, about 20 feet away. But now it looked different again. Taller, thinner. Its skin was grey like old meat, and its arms hung down to its knees. Its fingers were too long and ended in black claws. But the worst part was its face. It still had those empty black holes for eyes, but now its mouth was hanging open. Not just open, split. Like someone had taken a knife and cut its mouth open from ear to ear, and inside that mouth I could see rows and rows of teeth going all the way back into its throat. "You found the sacred place," it said, and its voice came from everywhere at once. Not just from its mouth, but from the trees, from the stones, from inside my own head. How interesting. It started walking around the edge of the stone circle, but it didn't come inside. Its feet, which weren't really feet anymore, just twisted things with too many toes, made soft squishing sounds on the wet ground. "Do you know what this place is, Thomas?" it asked, still walking around the circle. "Do you know why your little compass brought you here?" I didn't answer. I just tracked it with my rifle, even though I knew the bullets wouldn't work. "This is where my people used to come," it said. "Before your people came with their churches and their crosses, before they forgot the old ways. This is a hungry place, Thomas, a place that remembers what it means to feed." It stopped walking and stared at me with those horrible empty eyes. "I've been sleeping for so long," it whispered, "waiting for the right kind of meal. Those hunters were just snacks. But you're something special, aren't you? You carry so much guilt. So much pain, you'll taste so much better." I could feel sweat running down my back, even though the air was cold. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the rifle steady. "Why don't you come in?" I asked, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "Why are you staying out there?" And thing that used to look like Sarah tilted its head to one side. For a moment it almost looked confused. "Old rules," it said finally. "Some things even I cannot break. But don't worry, Thomas. You'll have to come out eventually. You can't stay in there forever." It sat down outside the circle, folding its two long legs underneath it like a spider. "I can wait. I'm very good at waiting." That's when I realized what was happening. This stone circle, whatever it was, wherever it came from, was protecting me somehow. The thing couldn't come inside, but it was right. I couldn't stay here forever. I had no food, no water. Eventually I'd have to leave the circle, and when I did, it would be waiting for me. The creature smiled, showing all those terrible teeth. "Tell me about the helicopter, Thomas," it said in a voice like honey mixed with poison. "Tell me about those 3 men you couldn't save. Tell me how it felt to watch them drown." My hand tightened on the compass. The needle was still pointing at the stones around me, but now it was glowing faintly like it was warm. "I can make the guilt go away," the creature whispered. "I can eat all that pain inside you. Wouldn't that feel good, to finally be free of it?" I closed my eyes and tried not to listen. But its voice was getting inside my head anyway, making me remember things I didn't want to remember. The sound of the helicopter going down, the cold water, the faces of the men I couldn't reach in time. "Just step outside the circle, Thomas. Just one step, and all the pain will stop." When I opened my eyes, it was closer. still outside the circle, but right at the edge now. I could see every detail of its horrible face. I could smell its breath. Like rotting fish mixed with something sweet, it reached out one clawed hand toward me. The tips of its fingers were right at the edge of the stones. "Just one step," it whispered. I looked down at my grandfather's compass. It was definitely glowing now, warm in my hand, like it had a fire inside it, and that's when I got an idea. It might not work. It might get me killed, but I was going to die anyway, if I just sat here and waited. I stood up, still holding the compass, and started walking toward the edge of the circle. The creature's smile got even wider. "Yes," it hissed, "come to me, Thomas. Come and let me end your suffering." I stopped right at the edge of the stones and looked into those empty black eyes. "You want me?" I said. "Come and get me." And then I threw my grandfather's compass as hard as I could, right at the thing's horrible face. The compass hit the creature right between those empty eye holes, and something amazing happened. It screamed, not just screamed, it shrieked like 1,000 nails on a chalkboard. The sound was so loud, it made my teeth hurt and my vision blur. The creature stumbled backward, clawing at its face where the compass had hit it. Where the compass touched, its grey skin was turning black and smoking like it was burning, but there was no fire, just that black spreading mark. I didn't waste time watching. I ran out of the stone circle in the opposite direction from the creature. I could hear it behind me, still screaming and thrashing around in the fog. But now I didn't have my compass anymore, and I was back to running blind through the forest with no idea where I was going. The screaming stopped. Everything went quiet again. I kept running until I couldn't run anymore. Then I walked as fast as I could. My legs felt like rubber, and every breath burned my lungs. The fog was so thick now I couldn't see my own hands in front of me. That's when I smelled smoke. Real smoke, like wood burning. Not the sick, sweet smell I'd been smelling all day. This was the good kind of smoke. The kind that meant warmth and safety. I followed the smell until I saw a faint orange glow through the fog. A campfire. But was it real, or was this another trick? I got closer and saw a small cabin. It looked old and run down, with moss growing on the roof and boards falling off the sides. But there was definitely smoke coming from the chimney. I walked up to the door and knocked. "Hello? Is anyone there?" No answer. I tried the door handle. It was unlocked. The door creaked open, and I stepped inside. The cabin was empty, but there was a fire going in the fireplace. Old furniture covered with dust sheets. A table with a half-eaten meal on it, like someone had just stepped out for a minute. I sat down in a chair by the fire and tried to warm up. My whole body was shaking, from cold, from fear, from everything that had happened. I still had my rifle, but I was down to my last 2 bullets. That's when I noticed the photographs on the wall. They were old black and white pictures of people in old-fashioned clothes. Loggers maybe, or early settlers. But in every single picture, the people looked scared. Not just nervous about having their picture taken, really scared. Like something was standing right behind the camera. And in some of the pictures, if you looked really close, you could see something in the background. A tall, thin shadow that didn't belong to any of the people in the photo. I stood up to get a better look, and that's when I heard it outside. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Something was scratching at the walls of the cabin. Slow, careful scratches, like someone testing to see how strong the wood was. I grabbed my rifle and backed away from the door. The scratching moved around the cabin, first the front wall, then the side, then the back. It was circling the place, just like it had circled me in the forest. Then it stopped. I waited, holding my breath. The fire crackled in the fireplace. Wind rattled the windows, but no more scratching. I was starting to think maybe it had gone away when the door exploded inward. The creature stood in the doorway, but it looked different now, bigger, angrier. The place where my compass had hit it was a black burned mark that went all the way through its head. I could see the cabin wall behind it through the hole. "That hurt, Thomas," it said, and its voice was like ice breaking. "That really hurt." It stepped into the cabin, and I could see it more clearly in the firelight. Its skin was hanging in strips now, like old wallpaper peeling off a wall. Underneath was something black and wet that moved like it was alive. "Your grandfather's compass," it said, taking another step closer. "Old magic, native magic. The kind that was here before my people came, before your people came. Very troublesome." I raised my rifle. "Stay back," it laughed. "Going to shoot me again? We both know how well that worked last time." But I noticed something. It was staying near the door, not coming closer to the fire. "You don't like the fire, do you?" I said. Its smile disappeared. Those black holes where its eyes should be seemed to get deeper. "Fire is..." It searched for the words. "Uncomfortable." I took a step toward the fireplace. "Why don't you come closer and warm up?" It hissed at me, showing all those rows of teeth. "Clever little ranger. But fire won't save you. Nothing will save you. I've been hunting in these woods for hundreds of years. I know every hiding place, every safe spot." As it talked, it was moving along the wall, getting between me and the door, trapping me. "But you know what?" it said, still moving. "I'm getting tired of playing games. I'm hungry. And you smell so good, Thomas. All that guilt and fear and regret, like the finest wine." It lunged at me. I dove to the side and grabbed a burning log from the fireplace. The wood was hot enough to burn my hands, but I held on tight. When the creature came at me again, I swung. The burning log at its head. It connected with a sound like meat hitting a grill. The creature screamed again and stumbled backward. Where the fire had touched it, its skin was bubbling and turning black, but it didn't stop coming. It swung one of those long arms at me, and its claws caught me across the chest. I felt them tear through my ranger uniform and into the skin underneath. Hot blood started running down my chest. I swung the log again, hitting it in the shoulder this time. More screaming, more burning skin. But it grabbed the log with its other hand and yanked it away from me, throwing it across the room. Now I was backed up against the fireplace with nowhere to go. The creature stood over me, dripping black blood from its wounds. It was hurt, but it wasn't dead, and I was out of fire. "No more tricks, Thomas," it said. "No more running. It's time to feed." It opened that horrible mouth wide, showing me all those teeth. Its breath was like a warm wind from a graveyard. That's when I remembered something. The emergency flare. The one I always carried in my jacket for signaling rescue helicopters. I reached into my pocket as the creature leaned down toward me. My fingers found the flare just as those teeth were inches from my face. I pulled the pin and shoved the flare right into the creature's mouth. For a second, nothing happened. Then the flare went off. Red fire exploded inside the creature's head. It stumbled backward, clawing at its mouth, making sounds like a steam engine exploding. Red light was shooting out of its eyes, its mouth, even out of that hole where my compass had hit it. But it still wasn't dead. It turned toward me, and I could see the fire burning inside its head like a jack-o'-lantern. "You little fool!" it gasped. "You think fire can stop me? I am older than your nightmares." It started walking toward me again, each step slower than the last. The fire was spreading through its body now. I could see flames under its skin, turning it. Black and crispy, I backed away until I was standing right in front of the fireplace. There was nowhere else to go. The creature raised its claws for one last attack, and that's when I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed the creature and pulled it down with me, right into the fireplace. We crashed into the fire together. Hot coals scattered everywhere. The creature's body caught fire like it was made of paper. It screamed one last time, a sound like the world ending, and then it started to fall apart. But as it died, something horrible happened. I could feel something cold and hungry flowing out of it and into me, like ice water in my veins, like something dark crawling under my skin. The creature's last words were whispered right in my ear. "Now, you will know what hunger really means." Then it crumbled into ash and blew away. I rolled out of the fireplace, my clothes smoking, my hands burned. I was alive, hurt and burned and probably scarred for life, but alive. I sat on the floor of the cabin, breathing hard, trying to understand what had just happened. The creature was dead. I had won, but something felt wrong. I was hurt, but I wasn't as hurt as I should be. The cuts on my chest had already stopped bleeding. The burns on my hands barely hurt anymore, and I was hungry, hungrier than I'd ever been in my life, but not for normal food. I looked at my hands in the firelight. The skin looked paler than usual, and my fingernails. Had they always been that long? Outside, the wind started to blow, and in the sound of the wind, I could swear I heard whispering, calling my name, telling me to come outside and hunt. I closed my eyes and tried not to listen, but deep down, I knew the truth. The creature was dead, but part of it was still alive. In me. I don't remember how I got out of those woods. One minute I was sitting in that burned-out cabin, and the next thing I knew, I was walking down Route 16 in the early morning light. My clothes were torn and singed. My hands were bandaged with strips of cloth I'd torn from my shirt. A trucker found me and gave me a ride back to town. He kept asking what happened, but I couldn't tell him the truth. Who would believe me? The official report said I'd been searching for the missing hunters when I'd fallen into a ravine and hit my head. Memory loss from the concussion, they said, exposure to the cold, possible hallucinations. They never found the hunters. They never found my truck either. When the search teams went back into that part of the forest, they said the whole area looked different. No campsite, no cabin, just trees and rocks and normal woods. They transferred me to a desk job after that. Said I wasn't fit for field work anymore. Maybe they were right. But here's the thing nobody knows. Here's the part I've never told anyone. The hunger never went away. At first, it wasn't too bad. I'd be eating a normal meal, hamburger, fries, whatever, and I'd think about how much better it would taste raw. I'd look at the red center of a steak, and my mouth would water. Then it got worse. I started buying my meat rarer and rarer. Then I stopped cooking it at all. Late at night, I'd stand in my kitchen eating raw ground beef with my hands while the wind howled outside my apartment window. And the wind always seemed to be whispering my name. Thomas Kane. Even now, 15 years later, I still hear it, especially on cold October nights like this one. I moved away from New Hampshire after a few months, told everyone I needed a fresh start. But the truth was, I was starting to scare myself, starting to scare other people too. Because sometimes, when I looked in the mirror, my eyes weren't quite the right color. Sometimes my teeth looked a little too sharp. And sometimes, when I was really hungry, my fingernails would grow long and black while I watched. I've learned to control it, mostly. I live alone now, far away from other people. I order my meat online and have it delivered. Raw, very rare. The delivery guy thinks I have some kind of medical condition that makes me need special food. I let him think that. Most of the time, I'm fine. I can go weeks, even months, feeling almost normal. But when winter comes, when the wind starts to blow through the trees with that particular sound, that's when the hunger gets strong. That's when I start to remember what it felt like when that thing died in my arms, what it felt like when its darkness flowed into me like cold water. And that's when I have to fight not to go back to the woods. You see, I know something now that I didn't know before. That creature I killed, it wasn't the only one. There are others out there waiting in dark places, hungry places, old places where people used to leave offerings and burn fires to keep the darkness away. And sometimes they call to me in my dreams, in the wind, in the space between sleeping and waking. They tell me I'm one of them now. They tell me I should stop fighting it and come home, but I won't go back. I can't, because I know what would happen if I did. I'm not telling you this story because I want sympathy. I'm telling you this story because I want you to understand something important. There are things in the woods that don't belong in our world. Old things, hungry things, things that have been waiting in the dark spaces between the trees for longer than any of us can imagine. And if you're ever out there alone, if you're ever walking through the forest and you hear something calling your name in a voice you recognize, don't follow it. Don't listen to it. And whatever you do, don't try to save it, because some things aren't meant to be saved. Some hungers aren't meant to be fed, and some prices are too high to pay, even for doing the right thing. I learned that lesson in the Mount Washington National Forest in October of 1974, the hard way. And every cold night since then, when the wind picks up and starts to whisper through the trees, I remember exactly what it cost me to learn it. The creature is dead. I made sure of that. But the hunger lives on, in me. And some nights, when the moon is dark and the wind is just right, I can feel it getting stronger. I can feel it winning. That's why I'm writing this down now, while I still can. While I'm still mostly me, because I don't know how much longer that's going to last. If you're reading this and you hear about someone going missing in the woods in the middle of winter, someone who just walked away from their car and disappeared into the trees, well, now you'll know, now you'll understand. The Wendigo is dead. Long live the Wendigo.